That sucks. No wonder vampires are so reluctant to turn others. Why is that?
Hold on, reset this right here. I've been listening to this, I realize I'm not streaming, but now I'm streaming.
It's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen.
Yep, thank you for the sub.
The purpose of tonight's video
My
is to
create
a relaxing environment.
God damn it, I have the wrong thing. Streamlabs.
So these are about 4 hours worth of some of my favorite recent
I'm on
stories
Twitch,
packaged
right? I mean YouTube,
some relaxing
dashboard.
brainstorm sounds in the background. And, of course, importantly, no mid-roll adverts.
Looking for two more
This is
for
definitely a
free.
chance for those
RFC carry.
help.
By rank 1 Shaman Tank. All I ask for in return is a sub to my YouTube post.
There's something far worse than vampires. By Ringo Crow. Now this right here, this is one of our more pricey
Recent events.
Mr. Gibson, but I think it's perfect for the occasion.
Thank you,
The waiter said before pouring him a glass of blended red wine.
SC24X, for the subscription.
And for the lady, Mrs. Gibson, here you are. The waiter smiled at me,
Copy that.
pouring wine into my glass as well.
Copy. Wait, what? Copy.
Thank you, my husband
Copy.
said before waving the waiter off, so we could get back to enjoying our evening. Oh my, Walter.
Not
Again.
live splits.
That was so rude. I told my husband with a hint of sarcasm.
Streamlabs.
What do you mean?
Change the link. I don't know
Didn't
why I
even
gotta
give me a
do
chance
this
to
each
thank
time.
him. Been really nice to us so far. I don't think I've ever had a more polite waiter.
Alright, it works.
My husband raised his glass to say a toast. Couldn't help but notice the warmth that radiated from his eye. He was a vampire that rarely exhibited emotions. For him, any display of affection was as rare as the wine swirling in our glasses. Cheers. Cheers to our 1-year anniversary, my dear. I know I don't tell you enough, but I do adore you. I love you with all of my heart, my dear. Walter, it's so sweet. Thank you, he said, smiling at me. Cheers, I said before toasting. After taking a sip from his glass, he asked me, so, how's everything going? I found it difficult to hide my smile, as I told him that things couldn't have been going any better. That's excellent. I know, I'm surprised myself. Surprised me every day, my dear Maya. It's been about 1.5 years ago since my life had completely changed. That was around the time I met the man, vampire, I should say, of my dream. We first met during a charity event at Detroit Symphony Hall. We actually met after the concert in the donor lounge. A good friend of mine introduced us, and, well, as they say, the rest is history. The funny thing about it was that at first, well, I wasn't even planning on going. I was busy with work stuff, and yeah, I've been to like 1 million charity events, given my station in the company. Please don't get me started on how any of this charity madness got started. It's a really long and really irritating story. Let's just say it was me who schemed up what I thought was this innocent little initiative. You know, as a way to give back and say thank you to the local community for doing business with our company. I figured I could add another easy raise. The program would end in 1 year or so, and we can move on to the next great big idea. No goal. Well, unfortunately for me, the whole thing turned out to be a raging success. The program had kind of taken on a life of its own, so yeah, like I said, I've been to quite a few of those things by this point. Turns out I could escape those damn charitable events to save my life. Looking back on it, I came up with every justification you could think of to justify scrapping the program. But of course, just another thing. I know, it sounds terrible, but I don't care. These exhausting events had taken a chunk out of my already non-existent social life, which irked me to no end. The night I met Walter, almost never happened. I came that close to calling my secretary and having him attend on my behalf. Thank God I didn't. I don't know if it's fate or dumb luck. Well, whichever it was, That's how I met my future hubby, Walter. And I have to say, I'm glad things shook out the way they did. Is everything okay, my dear? He asked. Yeah, I'm sorry, dear, I smirked. What were you thinking about? Before I could answer, the chef and one of his assistants returned with our entrees and a food cart. As they placed our items on the table, I found myself staggered by another round of unsolicited thought. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't stop myself from reliving that fateful moment in which my life had forever changed. Oh my God, I'm doing it again. I told myself I'd stop thinking about this. It had been like a year since my transformation into a vampire, but the memories still haunted me. The process from human to vampire was wrought with so much difficulty and uncertainty. To be honest, it's probably a miracle I even made it through the first night. Walter had stayed by my side through the whole ordeal. He did his best to make sure I didn't succumb to my fever. But the pain was intolerable. Now, the whole experience was pretty intolerable, come to think of it. I totally regretted my decision at first. Well, I'll give Walter credit. I mean, he did ask if I wanted to go through with it before we actually went through with it, so to speak. I did kind of tell him I wanted this, without really giving it too much thought. Well, whatever. I'm just happy it all worked out in the end. I waited patiently, smiling the whole time as the chef and his assistant finished up. My husband thanked them before again hastily dismissing them. The chef and his assistant obeyed. I could tell they knew who my husband was. Probably the reason we were even able to secure reservations at this fancy little restaurant to begin with. And my husband, Walter, wasn't exactly a high-ranking vampire or anything like that. I think it was his boss's boss who was the all-important one. I mean, I never actually met the lady. Come to think of it, I think Walter's only ever seen her a few times. Well, apparently this girl is a super big deal. I don't know, the whole vampire thing can get hilariously convoluted, and all of their weird ranks and sub-ranks, crazy birthrights, twisted bloodlines, and the strange rituals. Well, I forget his boss's boss, the official title, but I think the place my husband worked at, well, I think they were in charge of record keeping for the local vampire lords, or something like that. It's a long story. Let's just say that around town, especially at hotspots like this restaurant, my husband was well respected. Funny thing about it was that when we met, I was the well-respected one. I used to be one of the top execs for one of the top lending agencies in the world. I won't state the name, for obvious reasons, but it wouldn't be too hard to figure out. The region we live in really only has one major mortgage player. You seem a bit preoccupied. You sure everything's okay, my dear? He asked, after noticing that I'd drifted off again into my own head. Oh gosh, I said, before laughing under my breath. Definitely feeling a little embarrassed. He caught me red-handed. With a weighty sigh, I told my husband. Everything's fine, sweetie. How are you adjusting to your new life? Wonderfully, I told him with a smile. Great. What about your new job?
Yeah.
So far, I'm absolutely loving it. Really. Even though it's a notch or two down from the career you had in your prior life. Pay-wise, I say it's further down the totem pole than a notch or two, but yeah, as crazy as it sounds, this is probably the happiest I've ever been. That's both surprising and pleasing to hear. I'm glad you're happy, my dear. To be frank, I was afraid you'd come to miss your old life. You kidding me? Working as a travel agent for these crazy elite vampires has been the most
God
amazing
damn it,
experience.
I keep losing a sub.
With so many different people.
Come on.
And I've learned so many different things about our world. It's not even funny.
Sub to my
I couldn't have asked for a
YouTube
better life.
at Carnage
That's
Friday.
good to hear, my dear. How are you adjusting to the transformation? I'll be honest, it was hard at
You
first.
are.
I mean, when you changed me, I almost died. Is that common?
Alright, we're back at
I'm starting
400.
to get the feeling it is. I'm afraid so. That sucks. No wonder vampires are so reluctant to turn others. Why is that? Why is what? Why is the process so taxing? Apparently it has something to do with our saliva. The toxins carried in it can be deadly if not administered with supreme caution. I never asked you this, but do you regret your decision to change me? I'm afraid I do.
Thank you.
It was irresponsible, no matter the amount I care for you. Knew you'd say that. I gave it away. Nothing. It's just who you are. Is that a bad thing? It can be. I chuckled. Most of the time, it's a good thing. I mean, a really good thing. Oh, that's good to hear, he said, blushing ever so slightly. That's so wild, you know. What's wild, my dear? None of the things I thought would be true about us actually are. Well, not us, but our kind. You know what I mean, told him in a huff. What do you mean? He asked. You know, it's totally opposite of all the vampire movies. We're not allergic to sunlight, garlic, crosses, or Bibles. I mean, we don't have to feed on human blood very often. No, we even have regular 9-to-5s. Yeah, I don't know why I thought it would be any different. I suppose it could be overwhelming at first, especially for those not born a vampire. Yeah, speaking of that, what am I called again? I keep forgetting. What do you mean? You know, people like me who were turned into a vampire by another vampire. A brood. It's a very derogative term. Wish our kind would find another name. I don't mind it so much. You were a proud woman. Thank you, I said while blushing. That was the first thing I noticed about you, and the first thing I fell in love with. I'm sure he noticed my surprised expression. Walter hardly ever told me how he felt. He was always dodgy and cagey when it came to the subject. Oh man, the night couldn't have been going any better. I was so looking forward to celebrating a countless number of anniversaries with this vampire, especially if this was how it was going to be. Just then, Walter's phone began to ring. I looked at the number blinking across the screen in disbelief. Strange. He answered the call with this look in his eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. He set his phone on the table, looked over at me, and tapped the speaker option. Greetings, this is Mr. Gibson. What can I do for you? I would introduce myself, but I'm sure you already know who I am, Mr. Gibson. I do. It's a privilege to speak to you. I wish I could say the same. What do you mean? I'm calling you out of courtesy. I don't understand. Given you are a loyal subject of ours with a sterling reputation, I thought I should be the one who relayed the unfortunate news. You have been selected. Selected? He asked. Hey, what does that mean? Did we win a prize or something? I asked with a slight chuckle. Is that your wife? Yes, he uttered. Walter looked over in my direction with this look of despair. I could see the pain in his eyes. He took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to ask, "And my wife? Has she been selected?" I am afraid so. Oh, I thought only one person. Married couples are an exception to the one-person rule. I'm sorry, Mr. Gibson. I would advise you and your wife to spend the time you have wisely. There has to be something that can be done. I know the decision can be appealed. Look, please, I beg you, I've served them faithfully my whole life. That's not how this works. Look, I am sorry. Farewell, Mr. and Mrs. Gibson. Walter stared at his phone. It was like he didn't want to believe the call was over. I've never seen my husband look so upset. I was confused and a little afraid to ask him what the hell was going on. I took a deep breath and worked up the nerve to ask him, Is, everything okay, sweetheart? He placed his hand atop mine and tried his best to smile. We should, enjoy our meal. Walter? It's nothing, my dear. You should eat your food before it gets cold. I heard what he said. Walter took a bite into a slice of filet mignon with a shaky fork. He peeked over at me while wiping his mouth with a napkin and asked, How's your steak? Walter? Who was he? Why are you so worried by what he said? You're starting to freak me out. He's a vampire way up on the food chain. Oh, really? Well, how long have you known him? What? Oh, no, I mean, well, I've always known of him, but no, heavens no. I do not know him personally. Wow. Why'd you say it like that? He's a vampire you never want to know. Well, this is making any sense. You're being extremely vague, Walter. My dear, well, perhaps you should... I stood from my seat and shouted, I don't want any of this fucking steak. What I want is for you to stop lying. What the hell's going on, Walter? I could feel the piercing stares of the other patrons without even having to look. When I realized I was brandishing my steak knife at my husband, I dropped it onto the table. Freaked out by my own behavior, I sat down and put my hands to my face. I fought like mad to gather myself, but before I could calmly tell my husband to spill the beans, the waiter came over and asked if everything was okay. My husband had been quick to dismiss the waitstaff earlier. This time, he didn't even so much as look up. He just sat there in his own little world.
Oh, you used to stream, but now you're on vacay, huh?
We're fine, thank you, I snapped. You could sense the uneasiness.
Metis is the guy that has our Thunderbluff quests.
I'll be happy to help. Everything's fine, I reiterated. Very well, he said, before leaving our table. Oh my God, I was just going on about how rude you were to our waiter, and here I am being rude to the waiter. I'm such a butthole. I placed my hand atop my husband's, and in as calm a tone as I could muster, I told him, Walter, look, I'm sorry for yelling at you. It was wrong, it's just that... you know what? Never mind. You wouldn't understand.
This would be like a 10-minute run, 15-minute run.
Apologize for. What's going on, dear? I'll tell you everything I know. Wait, oh, my phone's ringing. I looked at the unknown number blinking across the screen. Something told me not to answer. I glanced over at Walter and then back at my phone. And against my better judgment, I accepted the call. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Oh, dude.
I can hear you breathing into the phone. My, I wish I could see the fear in your eyes. Just a glimpse is all I require.
I'm tempted to keep on going, but like I want them to all be here, so like they, I mean, you're not gonna get experience, but you're gonna get like all your quest shit, like getting the troll shamans and whatever.
Who are you?
Or not the
Noel called my husband.
Noel shamans and like.
What do you want?
The warriors, or whatever they're called. It's like a quest line, so everyone's here to get like the same amount of quest shit.
Breaking protocol. The figure on the other end.
Because like you guys are gonna get like one experience per kill or whatever with me here. But like you'll quickly get like your quest shit basically done like super low level. So
how's your husband?
You guys can keep on questing. This will be like, even though we're waiting, like you'd wait this long anyways with a tank your level. But most tanks are cowards, so it's like you wouldn't find one that quickly. You get one here, get your elite quests out of the way that are in the dungeon. Bada boom, bada bing, keep on leveling.
Oh, I can't wait. I wonder if the light in your eyes will flicker before it fades. Is that why you want to know the color of my eye? Yeah. It's the subtleties before death that make all the difference. We have money. I still have contacts at my old job. They can help me get you whatever amount you're looking for. Please, we're good people. We don't deserve this. Oh, I can feel the strain in your voice. Please, look, just tell me what you want. Don't worry.
Is our guy? Wait.
Very soon.
He's in the Barrens. Is he getting a flight pass?
Hello. What's your name? How did you get my number? I glanced at my phone in display.
Oh yeah, he's on a flight pass.
This asshole had the nerve to end the call. Like what I had to say was worthless. I was furious. I turned to my husband and asked, "What kind of madness did you drag me into?" Maya, my dear, I should have told you everything I knew a lot sooner.
Well, let's see if I can get like a chicken proc for 5% haste for 5 minutes. Or is it 10% haste? It's like a mini bloodlust buff that I get that lasts for like 5 minutes from the chicken. If I can get that, that'd be sick.
Let's just go.
If I don't, I'll just swap back to, what calls it? Ruin of the Guard Captain.
I was hoping all of this nonsense was nothing more than some vampire being an asshole. Because, I mean, well, let's face it. No matter if you're a human or a vampire, there's always some asshole.
I could go Nomus Harm Prevention Belt and Rock.
I'm sure my husband saw me
Nomus Rocket Biz for like a huge pull, but it's like, that's just risking it for like showing off. I don't need to do that.
To be honest, I couldn't care less what he was doing.
I don't need to use any of my gnomish devices here. Like, I can just fuck them up with my normal shit. I mean, I might drop a bomb here and there just to be fancy.
When did it finally decide to leave?
Because I think I need to upgrade the thorium grenades from high explosive bombs.
I accepted his offer. Together we made our merry way across the street, in the direction of the parking garage, so we could get our car, go home, and pretend like this night had never happened. We were in downtown Royal Oak, which was apparently a hotspot for vampires. It's funny because when I was much younger, I'm talking late teens, early 20s, I'd been on several dates in or around this area. That realization blew my mind. I never would have guessed that this was prime hunting grounds for my kind. You could see the car park from where we were. All we had to do was get there and everything would be okay. God, I never wanted anything so bad before. I stole a deep breath and told myself, okay, girl, just hold it together a little longer. All you gotta do is just make it to the car and we'll be fine. All you gotta do is just get there, start the thing up, and drive off. After that, we can pretend like this night had never happened. I quickened the pace when the crosswalk gave us the signal to proceed. It was around 9 o'clock at night now. A busy downtown district, so of course I tried my best not to draw attention. It was difficult though.
Alright.
The whole time we were crossing the street, I had this sick feeling deep down in the pit of my stomach. I just knew this sicko was watching us right now. He was probably waiting for us to make a mistake so he could pounce on us like prey. Past a cluster of restaurants. One of them had a balcony. Don't know why, but the carefree laughter of the humans dining outside in the cool night air really got under my skin.
Right, stupid, everything is like, I have threat and everything, we're good.
Misery loves company. We crossed another street.
Pop the battle
chicken. This one led past a dark, winding road. Walter got dead in his tracks as soon as his foot hit the other side of the curb. I let go of his hand and huffed in frustration. Walter, why did you... Before I could even finish, I caught a glimpse of what he was staring at. That same winding road that we'd just crossed was a municipal building with a slated roof. And on the top, the gable, and the side closest to it. I saw him. A shadowy figure was standing on the edge, watching our every move. Couldn't make out any of his features because of the distance.
Alright, we got it.
The only thing I was able to see was that piercing stare. His eyes cut into me like a pair of daggers. Walter turned to me and said, "You should keep moving." Is that the guy who's after him? Yes. My husband Stout. Put his arm around me without saying another word, and together we continued making our way towards the car park. Well, we made it there.
Just in case, I'm just gonna kill everything right here, so it doesn't kill. We have so much that it could like possibly kill one of our low levels here, so I'm just gonna take care of them right here.
And took in a deep breath. I then turned and looked at Walter. He was just staring at me. He tried to speak, but kept choking on his words. "What's wrong?" I asked him. "I'm so sorry," he muttered. When he raised his head, I could see the infinite sadness in his eyes. "Hello, my dear mother. None of this makes sense, but I promise you'll understand once we reach the afterlife." "Walter, you're scaring me." He kissed me upon the forehead before telling me,
Alright, let's heal up.
Don't
Let's
run.
stop being low HP.
What? Don't run? Why not? I watched with bated breath as the elevator doors crept apart. As soon as we exited, I turned my head in the direction of our vehicle. My heart nearly fell from my chest.
Alright, weird.
Oh my God. It's the person who'd been hunting us. There he was in the flesh, leaning up against the side of our car, smoking a cigarette. How in the hell did he even beat us to our car? How in the hell did he even know which car was ours? He was just on that roof, staring at us like... There had to be another explanation. Otherwise, this was truly a nightmare. Maybe this was a different person. No, it had to be him. I'll never forget those eyes. All that sense of dread his presence filled me with. I grabbed Walter by the arm. What should we do?
Still got that battle squawk. 5% haste.
I don't know.
Like, is that haste?
Maybe
Yeah.
we can talk to him.
Attack speed. That's basically haste, right?
We're good people. Sure, if we just... No. The figure turned his head in our direction when he heard the commotion. He flicked his cigarette butt into the shadows before calmly stepping into the driving arm. Quiet enough to hear a pin drop. When I heard his footsteps as he approached, I nearly lost him. Maybe 15 feet away, just standing there watching me. A voice inside my head told me to turn and run and to never look back. My husband was mesmerized by this being. He knew who this person was. I could tell by the fear forming in his eyes. I could tell by the hushed breaths he stole. Tension was suffocating. The nightmare was real. This monster had come to claim our dream. Every step stolen brought him closer. When he was about 10 feet away, he stopped again. That's when I finally was able to catch a glimpse of his face. It shocked me to my core. He was normal. Nothing about his appearance screamed out some stealer at all. He was dressed in all black, an overcoat of some sort, boots and jeans. His long dark hair was slicked back and tied into a ponytail. He was well groomed and clean shaven. It was nothing like what I'd expected to see. His features were flawless. You could even go so far as to say he was beautiful, like some kind of dark angel. The only thing airy about him were his eyes. could see the hatred behind their brownish tint. Those two swirling masses were a glimpse into madness. Usually I prefer a good hunt, but I suppose having to always chase after your prey gets old. It's also a tag cliche, like some second-rate horror show. Who are you? I asked. He smiled. Did you enjoy your meal? Probably crude of me to ruin it with a call. Why do you want to kill her? Came over and stood directly in front of me. He placed his gloved hand to the side of my face and stated, exquisite. I can't wait to extinguish a soul filled with so much life and so much curiosity. Are you one of us? I'm afraid not. Then what are you? I think I'll save you for last. It'd be a waste not to savor every drop of your passing. A soul as rare as yours is like an amaranth. He then turned and stared at Walter for a moment. With a monstrous grin, he told him, as for you, I think you know how this ends. Walter, I screamed. The being lunged himself upon my husband and drove his fangs deep into the side. Drained his blood with a veracity I had never seen before. I fumbled through my purse and pulled out my pocket pistol. I cocked the hammer back and aimed for his head. The trigger finger felt like a lead weight. I tried and tried to pull the trigger, screaming out my husband's name the whole time, telling him I was sorry. I was killing Walter right in front of me. No matter how much I wanted to, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. The soul stealer gazed into my eyes as he drained the life out of my husband. I backed away until my back hit the wall, next to the elevator, and I couldn't go any further. I wanted to run so bad. I wanted to get as far away from this place as possible. But somehow, I could feel it. No matter where I ran, he would find me. He tore his fangs from my husband's neck without much compassion. Grinning wildly, he turned Walter around so I could see the life slipped from his own. Tears slipped from my eyes. It was so painful to have to stand there and be forced to witness my husband's final moments like that. There was nothing graceful about that. His lips quivered as he struggled to say the words, "I love you," one last time. Walter, no! I let go of my husband's body, and turned to ashes before it could even hit the ground. My hands were shaking uncontrollably by this point. I couldn't take it anymore. I closed my eyes and lowered my weapon. I cried and cried for what seemed like an eternity. I asked God to save me. I prayed and hoped an angel would notice my tears. He leaned into my ear and whispered, "Maybe if you click your heels, you can go home." God, please stop. I love the way you say his name. Why are you doing this? So much hope, so much light, so much fear. I can only imagine how potent it is. Drew his lips so close to mine we could have kissed. I could feel the heat that radiated from his skin. His breaths were hot and heavy. Instinctively, I turned away when his nose brushed up against my neck. Blood in my veins made them mold in desire. You're a thief. It's funny you say that. Isn't that the same thing a human would say to you? I looked up at him with teary eyes. My whole body was trembling. I asked him, hoping against hope, he'd finally reveal his identity. He ran his fingers through my hair. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I scraped at the brick wall until my fingers bled. This soul steel touched my right earlobe while examining the diamond earrings Walter had surprised me with earlier today as an anniversary gift. traced down my neck, the back of his finger. I shuddered, doing nothing more than to let myself slip out of my body, where I could be free. While staring deeply into my eyes, he finally revealed his true motive. My name is Jiraiya. One of 5 fallen generals who fought for his dream. My job is to make sure the new faith continues to prosper. Vampire like you, or non-believers, are of no use to me or the anti-church that serves under. But that's not why I'm here. That's not the reason I'm going to slay you. I was sobbing like mad. This wasn't happening. None of this was happening. This had to be a bad dream. I shook my head over and over, trying my damnedest to stop my life from flashing before my eyes. I didn't want to die. Not like this. Couldn't believe it. Life could be so fucking unfair. I looked up at this thief and asked him, "Why do you have to kill me?" "That's the reason we created your kind. We need your blood to sustain ourselves while here. As you can imagine, hell isn't the most comfortable place in the world. You'll find out what I mean soon enough. Please, I don't want to die." Begging is so undignified, especially for a woman as dignified as you. His words stabbed through me like a sword, killing my heart before I'd even died. He plunged his fangs deep into my neck when he saw my sadness. The pain
I'll walk
was
with them
infinite.
just so they don't die on their way out.
Fire jolted down my neck, my shoulders,
Just
my
in case.
arms, before settling in my chest. He drained every ounce of my being. Who I was, who I wanted to be. It was all taken from me. There were so many things I would never know, and so many things I would never see. I thought about my ailing mother, my hard-working younger brother, my little niece, who was a darling. But most of all, Walter. I thought about the love of my life and how our love and life together had been taken away from us so cruelly. I could barely even keep my eyes open. My head fell back against the wall. My body slowly slipped to the floor, tearing the back of my dress in the process. This monster crouched down in front of me and watched in fascination as I choked on my own blood. He gazed into my eyes with this look. It was as if my death was his possession, and he was admiring his handiwork. He kissed me upon the forehead before grabbing my gun and slipping it back into my purse.
I don't know why you're trying to do that
His
kind of
lips
fancy
ever so
jump. Just
close
walk
as he
here.
whispered, "Departure such as yours.
Like right here, we can do a fancy jump.
I'm going to die in your suffering.
There's somewhat of a skip. No.
Fight its embrace." Walter? Yes.
Alright, so we'll do a wailing Catherine's carry
touched
now.
the face of my slayer. I could feel myself turning into ashes. The spark inside me flickered before going cold. I watched as the hand touching his face turned to ashes right in front of me. I feel my body slowly slipping.
Stay away for the subs.
My thoughts are my own. No one can take them away from me, not even this wretched demon. Sadly, I thought the same to be true for my hopes and my dreams. Had I known in life what I know to be true in death,
Alright.
I would never have taken Walter up on his offer. The Cave Explorer. Find
So
something
do a
terrible.
WC carry, I guess. I did that last night.
Sinking River's Terminus by Reflexia. A sinking river occurs when a flow of water loses volume downstream, replenishing the groundwater, which in turn restores that water later on. This is also the case for cave rivers in certain geologies, limestone most commonly. In any case, the water eventually returns from the depths, bringing with it its old elements to sustain the world above. This is but a fraction of this miraculous cycle, revitalizing the surface from underground. nurturing all life as we know it. My vocation is speleology, the scientific study or recreational activity regarding caves. For me, this manifests as a fervor in exploring. And there are, of course, obvious dangers associated with these activities, and I'm not one to push them out of mind. This all applies to my experience a year ago in a cave I stumbled upon during my travels through Western Asia. The focus of my travels was to find a cave which had not yet been explored. I took this journey alone. Even now, I've yet to meet an individual able to match my odd passion for traversing where nary a peep of light enters, snuffed out by the damp, cold darkness below. At the time, I was trekking the Konya plain in central Turkey. The area is known for various sinkholes.
Throw my Noma's shit away. I might use the Noma's mind control cap. I'm gonna keep that on me.
God, I wish I'd just walked right by that place. But I can't justify regret when foreseeing the consequences was impossible.
Alright, so
many will likely see
I can use goblin sappers, but I'm not going to use them right now. There's like thorium grenade, I think.
I set up camp near the entrance shaft around midday after doing a little online research. I'm fairly well versed in the Anatolian regions, but I'd never seen a cave listed anywhere close to my location.
No one has any? I gotta make these?
I've settled it.
The fuck? I mean, I'll take it, I guess. God damn.
Boiling over as I unpacked my surveying and caving equipment, as well as supplies to bring with me. I'd made sure to don some light waterproofs, as a small stream led down into the cave's entrance. Caves are practically refrigerators as it is, regardless of climate. No need to worsen this by being splashed by equally frigid water.
Wait, what?
Suffice to say,
already know?
I didn't hesitate to get started. It's important during a time like this to rein in one's excitement.
We'll bank this for now.
If you get lost. In fact, I almost forgot to bring spare batteries for my head.
Okay. Wait, we still have the green tower here. No, okay, that's mine. There's another one on my alt.
Reaching a branch or terrain change.
Okay.
These are my hand compass and inclinometer to measure the angles in the passage.
They're not like a thorium.
Then record the distance of the current passage with a tape.
My explosives.
Before proceeding deeper into the hidden world beneath.
People bought these all
a particular feature of the cave's entrance.
True silver transformer.
An abundance of what seemed to be
colors
ranging from rusty orange to a striking crimson. At first, this led me to believe it was a colony of sphagnum moths, several species of which can be varying degrees of red.
Wow, okay.
However, said genus of moths has never been reported to exist in this region. Sure, it exists in some areas.
So high explosive bombs are the next best
thing. This moss is most commonly found in humid.
I'm buying them
those which
all.
Allow bogs to develop. The Konya plain.
All the explosives are mine.
The driest area.
I am like Junkrat, but a Shaman Tank.
Just isn't enough to
give me all of them. Alright.
I didn't dwell much on the matter, as I forged deeper into the tunnel.
Okay.
I've been travelling around 3 hours down what I assumed was once the path of the ancient river, and the ground in front of me abruptly disappeared. A zap of adrenaline pierced my chest as I steadied my footing, knocking a few pieces of gravel into the gaping pit, seeming to repel the light from my headlamp. Crouching low to the ground, I peered over into the round abyss, revealing near vertical walls extending down, well past my reach of vision. Honestly, that was something that even now I can't figure out. With all my knowledge of caves, I was aware of nothing that could detail how this shaft had formed. It was too angular, too straight, too...
Wait, am I getting more shit?
Of course I'm not.
We've got all our bombs. We've got enough dummies. So I guess we go to... Let's repair, and then we'll go to Baron, see what we can do for carrying people in one of the caverns.
Passages ahead with the utmost caution. To my relief, I found nothing which compared to that pit of light-eating dark. After another couple of hours, I decided to call it a day. I was satisfied with my progress, and to be frank, I already missed the sun on my skin, however sweltering it might be. Something about that shaft had rattled me. The fact I'd almost been too late to see it was a good justification.
48 priests, god
After
damn.
a smooth journey back, was momentarily blinded by the sun, now close to the horizon. I pored over my map, which had not yet added any verticality. Try drawing a reliable map in 2 dimensions surrounded by cold darkness, let alone in 3.
Alright, I'm gonna take a piss and grab a beer.
Upon the landscape around.
Let the story proceed.
The beauty of our planet has rarely ceased to instill a deep sense of peace in my heart, no matter where I am. The golden tall grass flittered gently in the late afternoon breeze as I finished a bottle of water. A part of me is grateful for being able to experience these moments. Another part endlessly yearns for more. And I'm glad that this is what makes me, me. Following the short-lived serenity, I packed a small bag and ventured back to a village I passed on the way here, to stock up on food and water. It was far removed in contrast to those I'd grown up around. Children played and ran free in the dusty streets, passing cars being a rarity. Farm produce, vibrant in their colours, sat nestled in wooden stalls attended by wind-beaten men and women. This time of the day, the people sat and drank tea together. None of that milky nonsense, only a warm, sweet brew into which time was sometimes added. Despite the nation being such tea lovers, they were a great factor in the introduction of coffee to the Western world. Credits to Ethiopia, though, for its discovery. I was drawn to a small, open front store, seeing the cooled bottles of water and the packaged food that was practical for travel. The residents here knew fragments of English, but I'm fluent enough in Turkish to translate our conversations for the most part. Good evening, sir. My name's Quint. Nice to meet you, I greeted the shopkeeper. Ah, you're not from around here. What brings you to this inn? He replied with a hearty, tired voice. He wore a wide, salt and pepper moustache and a pair of rectangular glasses. Well, my friend, I'm a traveler. I travel across the world. It's my passion, I said, gesturing toward the street outside. You, come with friends? He asked, with kind curiosity. No, just me here. My head works better alone. I look for unknown caves so I can explore them and map them. His smile wavered then. A faint change, but a change nonetheless. The old man asked, this time in a quieter and lower tone. You have, you found any you like? He laughed a little, but his voice was not so full of life this time. He exuded a worry as he awaited my response. Yeah, I have. Just down the road, actually. Hey, is it okay if I camp nearby? I've already explored a lot, and I need to rest so I can go back in tomorrow. And at this, the store owner's voice dropped much more obviously this time, lip trembling slightly, and brow wrinkled in a mixture of fear and pity. But, you should not go to that place. It's an evil place since long ago. It should be forgotten. Blood was spilled by our ancestors for a reason. Don't undo their work, I ask you. A resonating shiver ran down my spine. My thoughts jumped back to that deep hole I'd discovered. It was as if the memory was forcefully pushed to the front of my conscious mind. I stood for a moment, contemplating what possible response such a proclamation could warrant. Your ancestors? I asked, unsure if this was the right question. Not mine, but of the land, he muttered. Hittite. Well, I'm not much of a history aficionado, but I recognize the word to refer to the Hittite Empire around 3,000 or so years ago. That's probably inaccurate, but that's of little importance now.
Alright.
I nodded slowly, feigning contemplation, then resolved...
Let's carry some people through WC.
I had my own as well, of which one was that I would not be dissuaded from returning, however oppressive and suffocating the cave might feel. Although I'd be lying if I said his words didn't rouse a faint sinking feeling in my gut. Okay, my friend. Well, I'll pack up and leave tomorrow. But I must rest for now and get supplies. I lied. I turned and perused the wares. After a moment, I returned to the counter with water bottles and various packets of cereal bars and powdered soup. Then, with a quick, "Thank you, my friends," I left the store and made my way back to camp. The sky had darkened and the streets were stifled. Not quite silent, but like a blanket had been laid over the whole place. I doubt it was anything more than mild paranoia given the events of the past day. Arriving back at my tent, creeping anxiety overcame my body upon seeing the gaping hole in the rock face ahead. A little fear is not uncommon in such environments. This felt different. People had, supposedly, stood on the very ground I found myself standing on at this moment, during all the time between, so, the cave. Patient and steadfast, outlasting whole generations and many more to come. I briskly entered my tent and zipped it up, feeling a little ease wash over. No scorpions or camel spiders came for a sleepover this time, so I couldn't complain. After all, this is what I wanted to do, wasn't it? My calling, or something like that, you know. I was thankful at least for the temperate climate. Still, that cave, it felt alive in a way. Not in the sense that it housed a variety of life, which was already evidenced to some degree by that moss coating parts of the entry shaft. No, more like the cave opening itself had a tangible presence that could be felt with the thin fabric covering it. A great black eye observing my every move, watching for the moment I pulled the zipper down to go outside and heed nature's call. And after some tossing and turning, I managed to doze off and claim my well-deserved recharge. Part 2. I woke around 7:30. The night had been merciful and nightmare-free. I put on some cargo shorts and a tank top and then left my tent, which was almost an oven at this point due to the morning sun. I brewed a pot of coffee using a gas stove and tore open a fruit and nut bowl, musing over my plan for the day. I'd marked any branching tunnels I'd seen along my previous path with red dots, and I took some time to marvel at the fruits of my last trip. It felt as if I were holding the cave itself in my hand. This time I made sure to bring some rope, as well as a few carabiner clips and several self-driving bolts for use with the bolt driver, as well as spare batteries. I realized with a small shock that previously I'd not brought a backup lamp with me. After packing one, I set off once again into the water-hewn passage. The moss felt noticeably spongier than it had the day before. It also seemed as if the hue had shifted, but I couldn't be certain. It was certainly less dry than before, though the stream's flow was no different than I remembered. Intrigued, I tore off a sample to attempt identifying when I returned, since the moss's strange behavior had sparked my interest. Stashing it in my bag, I pressed onward in search of the first branch.
Thank you, Xavier Payne.
To avoid overestimating myself, I settled on a rule where I'd map a tunnel to a certain distance, then return and do the same for the next. I had to stoop a little upon entering the first marked passage, which descended gently, then angled back up and to the left. After rounding this bend, the passage straightened. I saw a distant flicker of green or yellow light, which disappeared somewhere ahead. I paused and tilted my head in confusion. What had I just seen? My mind scanned for a possible answer, but returned empty-handed. Well, I opted to brush it off as my imagination. I kept it in my recent memory so I could think on it later. I'd barely reached the end of the passageway when a reverberating snap pierced the darkness, making me jump.
Thank you.
Very loud.
It's not showing it. I'm trying to look at it, but is it delayed? I don't know. Thank you for the sub. Let me look at recent events on Streamlabs.
Widely, I scanned the solid rock walls around me.
Thank you, Drayden Dark, for the subscription.
Saw nothing.
Alright, where's Egg? You're the first.
Being crushed by a falling slab. Turned on my heels.
Oh no, it was actually Morrison, my bad,
later,
but still.
Back at the sloping bed.
Alright.
Taking care of my footing, I started to descend, only to hear the thunderous echo once more.
Sub to my YouTube,
abandoning any patience in regard to safety.
Poundage Friday.
I broke into a sprint to reach the bottom of the stairs.
I'm sorry, there was people actually that
I
was before him, but like he's the first
the last incline of the
to invite.
finally bursting into the pair
I'm not gonna be that guy that kicks. I mean, could I take like a whole group of you newbies and you all roll on it in a raid group?
I wheeled to the right and sprinted toward the end.
Is that like a thing? Could I do that?
This time I was able to distinguish several quieter sounds.
It's Printy.
Like dry crumbling.
Okay. What's up, Printy?
Still, nothing around me explicitly confirmed that a structural break was underway. And as the light from outside came into view, I skidded to a stop. The moss. It had grown. That wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Moss are slow growers. What had before been a thin padding of the stuff was now closer to huge red pillows. The stream that emerged from the swollen masses was tinted red as it extracted pigments on its way through. Without further hesitation, it began to build up speed, kicking up dust and stones. I could literally see the soft mounds expanding by the second, like one of those time-lapse videos. Gritting my teeth, I propelled myself forward just as the fourth and loudest crack so far resounded, my ears ringing from its intensity. Jumped onto the pulpy scarlet beds, now only 20 or so meters from sunlight. As soon as my foot made contact with the moss, it was as if I'd stepped in superglue. I kicked my free leg in front of me, bracing myself to prevent my knee breaking from my momentum. Dazed, I looked down in terror to see that my feet were barely visible. It was pulling me in. Horrified, I reached forward, grasping aimlessly at slick tufts of moss. This was it. This is how my story ended. I didn't even know what the fuck was happening. But I had so much left to fill the pages of my life. No, this couldn't be it. And then, it was black. Part 3. I came to in an aching haze of confused fear. I thought I was still in the tunnel, until my brain fully rebooted and I realized my eyes were clenched shut, so tight I could see purple noise forming. Slowly, my eyelids relaxed and flickered open. I was lying sprawled on my back, looking up towards...
Oh, whoops. I keep on muting myself. I gotta, like, undo that. It's like my 10 key on my Razer Naga and 0 on my keyboard.
With a groan, I raised my left hand above my face.
Stop dying.
Cracked and chipped. It's still functional.
Motherfucker, come back here.
3:41 p.m. My eyes darted
Where's this
between
guy?
the twinkling expanse above.
Stop.
Lying in complete
Get back here.
disbelief. I wasn't outside.
Where is he?
I grunted, pushing myself up into a sitting position. The sight presented to me was staggering. I'd been unconscious on the floor of an unfathomably large chamber.
Scaring me.
For how long?
'Cause I feel very much like responsible for everyone in my group here. I don't want none of you guys to die.
Boreal spectrum cast a grim illumination.
Die on my hands, where I could definitely save all of your asses. Oh, 52 warrior just died. Ooh.
What is rational was I? I vividly remember sinking into that damn moss, moments from climbing out from the cave's gully. But where had I wound up? I lowered my gaze from the glow overhead to get an idea of the structures around me. Immense crimson stalagmites towered over the chamber, as well as equally massive hanging stalactites, which seemed to look down upon me in dismissal. Some had met and formed great pillars, looking as if they were all that was holding this place up. I would have attributed all that.
Alright, Tusk is probably at Crossroads.
My mind was racing too
okay.
fast to consider anything unrelated to finding a way out of this hellish landscape. I stood up with some effort, muscles still sore from my previous action. Looking to my right, I found more of the ominous formation. To my left, the mother of all monoliths, stood before me. It's difficult to convey its tenfold thicker than any of the others.
Is there a UC quest for this? I forget. There's like definitely a quest line through here. There's 2 from TB. I don't know if there's one from Orgrimmar or one from UC.
Squinting at the lower
There's like at least 5, 6 quests here.
Something smaller caught my attention. What appeared to be a raised stone platform surrounded by carved steps on all sides. Need to get some form of answer. I walked over to the structure, making out a single object on top. I was looking upon a sort of podium, top of which were stone slabs stacked neatly. Many of those entrancing dots of light spotted the ancient altar, which I came to realize were some kind of fireflies as they fled on my arrival.
Oh yeah, I never did this yet.
Tunnels before. I figured there must
I
be
out-leveled
millions,
it. It was like a
hundreds of
great
millions
quest.
of them resting on
Just
the
like,
cavern's roof.
whatever. Never got the
Closed my eyes
bag
and took a few
or
deep
the deviant legs.
Considered the possibility I'd knocked my head, and this was a dream conjured as a result, but it felt
1, 2,
real.
3, 4, and then there's our
Pressure
5th.
on my
Alright,
feet,
let's go.
Rays of emerald light
We
in
good,
my
we good.
eyes. These things
Follow
could not
square.
be attributed to a dream. If it was, then my awareness would allow me to lucid dream and fly my way out of this chamber. Climbing the worn stairs, the contents of the stone plates came into view. They had something carved into them, a myriad of pigments colouring images akin to hieroglyphics. I remembered my backup lamp and removed it from my bag, which had stayed with me through this ordeal. I turned it on and illuminated the tablets before me.
Wait, there's
It
2
depicted a
people
storm,
still a bit far
which
behind.
began
I want
with
us
a
all to be
gathering of
here.
people,
I want to
lying
leave
prostrate
no man
before a
behind.
huge divine being. On its back were
We
majestic
good? Okay.
butterfly wings. A great oak tree sprouted from its head. Its arms resembled the iridescent tail of a dragonfly, ending with human hair. Standing on many graceful insectoid legs, it showered the worshippers with a blessing.
Yeah? What are
The
we
next
waiting
image
for?
showed a green landscape, with crops growing twice the height of men.
Can someone
Infants
share
played and
Serpent
frolicked
Bloom?
in the fields,
Oh,
some under sun rays, others basking in rain.
I don't know if anyone has it.
For a brief
I don't got
moment,
any
I
of
thought back
those.
to that shop owner and what he'd said about the land's ancient denizens. If this was, in fact, of Hittite origin, it was remarkably
Okay.
well preserved. I flipped and continued reading to see an unsettling portrayal. The entity, who I assumed to be some patron of farming, maybe fertility, stood over the settlements, this time wearing a bitter sneer. Another frame depicted it then abandoning its people. They looked to be crying out, pleading in despair, their hands reaching out toward this titanic being. The people done something to upset it.
Pop some chickens.
The next image was in stark contrast to the rest. The same landscape as before. This time the sky was blazing, the ground dry and cracked. Once lush fields were withered, and the folk who'd been dancing in ecstasy were now sullen and bone. Underneath this was... well, I'll just describe it. Men stood, naked, revealing what I can only describe as widespread castration. Yes, I was nauseous even looking at it. It's like all their parts had become gangrenous, various states of progression. Some were fully castrated, others only half. Among them were an equal number of mothers who wailed over stillborn children. All shared the same gaunt, malnourished stature. I stepped back for a moment, catching my breath. Genuinely squeamish, but this was something else entirely. How could a deity allow any of this to happen? I returned to the pedestal and quickly overturned the tablet in morbid apprehension. The next illustration showed earthquakes ravaging the towns and villages, and rivers which had been impossibly bent askew from their beds and diverted elsewhere. Through Armageddon, I'd ever seen it told. And I was about halfway through when a splintering crack tore through the ambient. I immediately correlated that noise to what I'd heard in my flee from the tunnels. A deep sense of dread grew, winding its way up and throughout my skeleton. I couldn't at first identify the source, but the answer presented itself before I had the chance to try. It sank in awe as a great chunk of the Scarlet Mountain before me broken off. The scale of the landscape made the boulders seem to fall in slow motion. Finally, the hunk of maroon rock drove into the ground with such force that I could feel the earth tremble beneath me. I leant on the pool, paralyzed for a moment. A cloud of brown dust plumed from the site of impact, which I hoped I was upwind of. I had enough problems at the moment. Didn't need particulate lung disease as enough. Allowing my heart rate to subside, I looked back down at the tablet. Following the doomsday imagery, there was some kind of official gathering.
No one needs Wind Fury here.
Many of the attendants wore robes and were discussing something in a heated debate.
Don't die in the WC. We won't, man.
The characters of the long-dead language meant nothing to me. All I could do was attempt to follow the accompanying illustration. The first displayed 5 men, leading into a pot. Their robes featured colourful artwork depicting gods, men, and various symbols. It made me think these were holy men, priests, or shamans maybe. The pot was full to the brim, and the next image showed the people preparing a fire and placing the pot on a hanging cradle above it. Next, an arrow was set ablaze with flammable liquid, then dunked into the boiling blood. The final step revealed the arrow, removed from the blood, burning with a crimson flame, its shade heavily emphasized. Another air-rending clap demanded my attention, this time closer and much higher up. As the crumbled mass fell away, something became visible underneath, with a contrasting dark green texture. The fragment shattered against the ground, an even larger cloud of orange dust billowing out into the air. Heart drumming in my ears, I looked back down to the tale of biblical carnage. On the next tablet, a priest stood at the mouth of the cave, facing outwards. It was. The shape had already been ingrained into the folds of my brain. It was identical. Close to full-on panic at this point, my eyes drifted to the lower portrayal. The creature from the beginning stood leagues above the congregation, bathing them in its shadow. Pure malice and rage were its expression. I felt it was addressing me directly. Splintering rumbles now rising in a terrible crescendo. I flipped the slab, which revealed the final play. The burning arrow was shot by a bowman into the deity's left shoulder. I could almost hear its howls as its very being was separated into 2. One bursting with the same glorious light seen at the start, and the other a putrid, twisted mockery of divine power. The abomination was poured into the cave along with the arrow, swallowed whole by the earth itself. I'll never be able to rid my memory of the final scene. Cattle, goats, and even people were being sacrificed en masse, their blood forming a gushing torrent which drove its way into the cave. The river was shown seeping through the rock into an immense chamber, where it showered down onto the vile, writhing being. It encircled the creature in a sanguine whirlpool, constructing around it as its appendages flailed around. These enormous towers were made of blood. Now, there was way too much of it. And many were drained to leave such an unimaginable amount of blood. And for that matter,
we're gonna go back down here. Get this done with first.
That moss I'd seen. Of course, it wasn't some offshoot of sphagnum. It was another unremarkable species that had been tainted by the blood of the mask.
But there's one person behind. Hold on.
I was emptied of thought when a sudden, deep, menacing rumble vibrated through the entire cabin. This was different. It pounded its way through into the core of my being. Impending doom manifested, and I rose my head meekly above the altar. That dark patch I'd seen before.
Is that an audiobook? No, it's like a YouTuber. What's his name? It's Dr. Creepin. He's like one of the creepypasta guys that like reads like creepypastas. He's like an English dude, right?
At least I should.
Sounds so pleasant to listen to, right?
A deep depression in the mottled surface, shaped like a diamond with concave edges, contained a small point of light that was emerging from the darkness, intensifying until a blinding marvel gazed down at my puny form. A crackling voice erupted from within, sounding like the splintering bark of 1,000 trees being felled all at once, booming to address me.
You have changed your minds, I take it.
The force of its words made me stagger backwards, and any response I may have had was throttled as I stared up at the glare of some colossal being.
Why do you cower in silence, you? Speak.
What are you talking about? I stammered, my breathing shallow.
I see that some time has passed since your people and their self-proclaimed holy and entombed, using the very symbol of my idea. Does one not perceive blasphemy in this? It seems not. I'll allow you a gentle reminder. Return me to my body, and I shall consider sparing mine.
Mine? What? I don't know anything, please. I don't even know where I am. I cried, instinctually sensing the waves of anger emanating from the presence, sapping the strength in my muscles as I held onto the podium for support. At that moment, I heard something else. Yet again its source was unknown to me, but I recognized the groaning of something under immense pressure.
Your understanding is not a requirement, Chief. But know that on the near morrow, the offspring of this world shall be torn from their future's womb.
The voice blared, cold, yet frothy with ire.
All you need do is share the whereabouts of my body, and be done with it.
The deep creaking suddenly exploded into a deafening cacophony. A jet of broken rock, blood rather, shot out into the air from the rear, the force sending shards far into the distant blackness in an instant. What I saw next, I wish could be wiped from my memory, but I don't think anyone could forget what then emerged. A vast appendage extended from behind, unfurling in all its awful might. The only way I can describe it was primordial. It looked something akin to one of the raptor-like pedipalps of a whip spider, rough and covered in bumps, terminated in a collection of extremely long, sharp barbs. It swung around to the front with a speed that wasn't physically possible for something its size. The nauseating stench of a charnel house then permeated my nostrils as I watched in disbelief as the demonic appendage began scraping away at its prison. Wait, please, stop, I sputtered, words cascading from my lips before I even had time to think of it. I don't know where your body is. The grotesque appendage continued tearing away at its cage. Shattered slabs fell by the dozens, further revealing the form beneath. My terrible dismay.
Lowbies, voice thundered. I shall take the task upon myself. Do not worry your frail mind. I will see it through that this realm is returned from whence it came.
The words had a disturbing sense of finality to them. Had Earth just received a sentencing? Myself being the sole member of the jury? I continue to hope with all my heart that that question is never answered. The imprisoned being then seemed to set its sole focus on escaping. The second, the bristled limbs began forcing itself out of the side closest to me, fissures spreading through the dry blood like tree roots, grasping, reaching toward this plane of existence. Both limbs free, they drummed and slashed away, until at last the structure failed, collapsing in a deafening whirlwind. The being's true form was beyond words, uncomfortable writing. Must have stood at least 150 feet tall. 180 with the dead, rotten trees which sprouted as horns from its head. Most of it was covered by a sickly black-green carapace. It stood upon vast, triple-jointed legs, constantly shifting for balance, shaking the underlying bedrock and stirring the luminous insects from rest. The torso was vaguely human. It was littered with bulbs that rhythmically spewed puffs of vapor. Countless writhing tendrils came off its back, snaking about the chamber, itching for something alive to grab a hold of. At such a speed that my eyes barely perceived it. Its face haunted me the most. Almost humanoid, but lacking a jaw.
Well, we need a critter somewhere around here.
Pit filled with fleshy
Is there
spikes,
a critter like kind of walk around
rancid,
here?
viscous
This
fluid.
thing right here, the snake, needs to die.
Saw no nostrils or ears.
There we go.
But its
I think
eyes
we
were
can-
those
okay.
diamond-shaped pits I've seen brighter, holding orbs of pale light. With a great effort, I tore my eyes from the behemoth, thought frantically, searching for anything that could possibly aid my situation. I was close to just giving up, and I caught a glimpse of something from beneath the remaining tablet. Swiping it off,
It's
with
like
no
if there's a
regard for
critter,
historical value. Deep groove
if there's a
between the
critter,
square
it'll keep
Opening
us
appeared inside, to see a
in
bronze
combat,
flickering with a meager lilac
and
flame.
we gotta find the
confusion.
critter
Picked it up to find that instead of being
that
hot,
is keeping
strangely
us
cold
in
between
combat to drink.
for a moment I stared, puzzled, till I made the link to what I'd just read. Regardless of the validity of the carved illustrations, it was now my only chance to avoid befalling a terrible fate. With all the determination of my bruised and battered body,
No good.
closed my head and
I think
began
that's like the
descending
chest or legs right there. I
What
forget.
was I doing? Surely this would mean the end of me. I was but an ant for one of the being's thundering legs to soundly crush. Despite my mind screaming in objection, I whirled my legs onwards, all the while trying to formulate some plan of action. The flying insects had become frenzied swathes of light, swarming away from the thing in mass exodus, pelting me like hailstones in the process. Seeing my trembling march, the being let out a deep, reverberating laugh. Its face remained unmoving. It seemed to speak from somewhere else entirely.
Or maybe
vibrating
it's only
from
one
every
guy on
direction.
quest. Okay.
Suddenly, without warning, I felt an excruciating pain in my crop. I doubled over, eyes watering, groaning from the searing pain. I had to push through it. Once again, my march continued, now slowed and limping, wading through the swirling, buzzing cloud.
Anything to do what exactly, child? Tie me down as a hunted bull.
The creature spat, venom quickly returning throughout its chuckle.
You are alone.
I didn't answer, for I had none. I was asking myself the same question. The dragging feet came to a stop, causing the entity to tilt its head in bemusement.
I admire your resolve, pathetic as it may be. Though I grow tired of this futility.
It hissed, shifting its pounding legs to face me. In an instant, it raised an arm and swung it toward me. I did all I could think to, and held up my hands defensively. It raised an arm and swung it toward me. I squeezed my eyelids tight and mentally recited a prayer to an unspecified god. The flies had become like rubber bullets at this point, stinging my skin with each impact. A near shattering boom rang out as the attack broke the sound barrier. I was blasted back a few feet as a result of this, whereupon I opened my eyes to see a bleeding stump in place of where my left pinky finger had been. Otherwise, I was somehow unscathed for the most part. The force of the attack had cleared the area of the insects, leaving nothing but a graveyard of twitching legs. Looking up, it became apparent that the arm had swiped at the arrow I'd held, now embedded into the sharp extremity. Sizzling cracks spread from the location, and the creature howled, backed by a choir of screeching metal. Its arms spasmed violently, forcing me to retreat in fear of being rendered a pile of diced flesh and bone. After a time of stumbling, I tripped and fell onto the cold floor. Turning around, I could see the beast struggling with its wound, scraping away at it, roaring in pained fury. I managed to dislodge the arrow and fling it far into the darkness before turning its head to look directly into my eyes. Took a step forwards, before dropping to a few of its knees, for lack of a better term, and then strained, weakened chuckle.
I am patient. Run, little one. Spread word of my coming. Instill fear into your tribes, your settlement. It will be far more exhilarating upon my arrival.
Go to hell, you depraved piece of shit, I yelled, coming out more as a fleeting wish than the powerful taunt I'd hoped for.
Good. Very good. There is little fun to be had in hasty submission.
And with that, the Colossus dropped to its remaining knees and clapped. I don't know how long I sat there, panting and heaving. I observed the creature for a while, but it seemed to be in some kind of coma. I wasn't going to check for a pulse. The mounds on its torso continued to expel gas, which dissipated into the cool subterranean air. After I was certain that it wouldn't be moving any time soon, I shakily stood up, then retrieved my gear from the altar. It seemed that the only way out of this place was up. Squinting, just make out a tiny, dark blemish on the ceiling, close to the top of one of the corridors. I'd need to recycle some of my bolts during the ascent, but regardless, I clipped myself in and tightened the harness. I began to climb, one repulsive handhold at a time. Flakes of blood showered me like confetti, celebrating my empty victory. I developed an efficient routine for bolt recycling, descending from a higher rung and unplugging the previous one. I often had to hang from the rope in near exhaustion to prevent my body from giving out in time. 30 feet left. Multiple bolts had already slipped my grasp and tumbled back into the hellscape below. I tried to avoid this, though my recently severed finger didn't help. Might have been my tired mind. I could swear I heard distant rumbles coming from all around. I blocked out any implications regarding the dozens of other scarlet obelisks, nearing the final stretch before reaching the open. Finally, after more than 200 feet, I clambered into the tunnel and hoped would lead to salvation. It extended upward another 50 or so feet before my fingers.
You guys are like 16, 17, so I'm gonna clear up the top thing just in case we don't have a Z. Normally we're supposed to go over here, right? I don't know if you guys are like watching the stream, but stay here. I gotta clear your shit kinda above, because we got 16
but I persisted nonetheless.
and 17. I don't want to risk you guys dying from a... Whoops.
Near the cave's entrance, I was worried
from a Z-axis pole.
When I checked my watch to see it was almost 8 p.m.
This is the way, but we need to clear.
Washing away.
Yeah.
Like drinking a glass of ice water.
Yeah.
On a hot day. After moving closer, within range of my almost dead lamp, the moss was mostly gone. A few dry scraps left clinging to the wall. A relief, to be sure. On the verge of passing out, I hauled myself past the entrance with a grunt and flopped onto my back, gulping long, deep breaths from the night air. It was nice to see the stars again, instead of a colony of cave-dwelling fireflies. My senses had now calmed enough to again be accepting of smells. The distant scent of iron and smoke became apparent. I'd had my fill of curiosity. I pulled myself inside my tent. allowing myself to wane into a deeper slumber. Part 5. I packed up my belongings the next day and cut my trip short. I just didn't have the strength nor the will to pursue any further venture. After some disinfectants and bandages, I returned my rental car and bought a ticket home for the same day. It was surreal, to say the least, sitting amongst fellow plane passengers in their blissful naivety, knowing what I'd seen yet surely couldn't speak upon, lest I be shot down with pitied looks and quiet dismissal. The journey home was inconsequential, the usual work or life worries I may have otherwise had, eclipsed by my experience.
I don't want them
I
done.
immediately visited my doctor.
Because there's been times like right here is like where we're going to be going underneath.
Frequent pains in my lower back and genital.
So just want to clear out all that shit in case someone pulls from above.
Of course, no diagnosis was made.
Just to be extra safe, because I see we got a 16 and 17. You have no, and a 15. We have no. Like, you guys are so early, you're getting carried, but you have no business being here that early type of deal. So it's like, I need to clear out this shit so none of you guys die.
For the moment. Months later, still haven't reached any substantial conclusion. There's no closure to be had. I did some research on the ancient Hittites' mythologies.
Alright.
I have in fact found something
We all back down here?
to what I'd held witness to.
Come back.
The tale follows a deity by the name of Telepany, whose desertion led to a similar sequence of events. It ends with a priest banishing the god's anger to the brass containers in the underworld, which not return. That's where the similarities end. It didn't seem like a demon, or angel, or god. Something else in time. The impurities and flaws of a deity given form. For one reason or another, I feel that the other bloody monuments in that place may not have been empty. Maybe this process had repeated many more times than I could comprehend. So, what of these divine beings who are purified? Where have they gone? Ascended to someplace else? I don't see them anywhere on Earth. So if anyone believes this, stock up on canned goods and other non-perishables. As time passes, it grows harder.
Actually, we got something keeping us in combat. There's like a critter somewhere around here we gotta kill.
Or not.
Like a snake or something back. Oh, never mind. We're out of combat.
Mercy to spare our children the terrors which will inevitably break their shackles.
That could have been one, but yeah.
Their children's children forevermore. Yeah, there's been nothing more than a cleansing site for those above us.
How much more mana? Okay, I got some moonberry juice after this.
Depravity that remains.
Should be enough.
It's been left.
I'm gonna clear shit that I don't want you guys pulling from body pulling from being so low level, so I'm pulling the shit on the side.
The door at the end of the hallway. I hate Singer card run.
There's a chest.
Jeremy Bowens was curious
what
to see what his new tenement.
Oh, over there, yeah.
Yet, it being a tenement, his curiosity was not born of high expectation. His knowledge of the world outside that of his hometown, high school, parents' home, and regular hangout spots with friends was limited at best. Yet it wasn't completely non-existent. He knew what a tenement was, and he knew he'd be staying there due to his ineptitude of choosing an appropriate career to follow.
I passed.
I was expecting to get that big break right out of college whilst relying heavily on his writing skills to pull him through. He majored in literature, all while answering the unending probing of questioning friends about what he'd do with his life. The answer was usually the same. I'll figure it out. Or, it's fine, I'll get a job easy. What do you mean, wasting my life? Yet despite the great amount of support he was not receiving from his friends, he continued down the path of several page-long essays, late nights reading up on long-dead poets and authors, and an overall sense of dread that his friends were right. Yet that last obstacle was not fully known to Jeremy, as he kept it locked away into the farthest corners of his mind, refusing to acknowledge it. So here he was, Looking at the large, dark,
thing.
decadent building.
I gotta clear this because I don't think you guys can like
I gotten myself into?
hug this. I think you guys might pull this, so I'll just grab this just in case.
Himself from the midwinter chill that came with living in New York. Having moved here from his hometown a few hours away, he was anxious to finally get a taste of big city life.
Just in case, because like we got 15, 16, 17. You guys are like all way lower. Like you're dangerously low to be in this dungeon, but like you're just lucky you're getting carried right now. So, but still, I gotta clear this shit so you guys don't body pull it.
Sort of dirty and grimy
behind
the entire expanse of the buildings.
Okay. Hold on.
Touching it would leave you wondering what alien
hold on.
was clinging to your hand. Almost all the windows
picking everything up.
Would have led most to believe it was abandoned.
Hold on. You're good, bud.
Letting light spill out of the occupied
and behind
rooms.
you guys said, I'm keeping my eye out there.
All of the windows, none excluded, had an even darker shade of either filth or scorch marks around the edges, leading one to wonder if said building had endured a fire.
And then this guy over here.
Jerry made a mental note to ask the landlady. All in all, it was a most magnificent sight, in the sense of foreboding macabre that washes over us all from time to time. So, with one last sigh of defeat, the young man whisked up his bags and entered the unlit entrance, letting the darkness envelop him fully. Once inside, he looked around.
Yeah, the non-believers thought that I was gonna like kill you guys or something. It's like, why would I do that? Like, I'm this far in. Like, Blizzard takes fucking griefing very seriously. I'm not gonna fucking grief a bunch of level 20s. I'm trying to do something good here, and these other guys like, man, he's gonna grief, man. Report that guy. It's like, fuck you, man.
The seemingly ancient and untrustworthy stairs. What he
it's like a beneficial agreement between me and my carries. They're giving me subs to YouTube, and I'm giving. Okay, what do we got? Oh yeah, this guy. Yeah, I'll get him.
Once he traversed the stairs, navigated the dimly lit.
I get them the carry. They get me some subs. I think it's like an equal exchange.
Back to the safety of his parents and friends.
It's all free on both ends.
Just as he began to seriously contemplate.
Very low effort.
He was ambushed by a woman who seemed to be as ancient as the building he was standing in. Hello, young man. You must be Jeremy, the one I spoke to on the phone. So nice to finally meet you. She greeted him in the most precious old woman voice Jeremy had ever heard. Oh, yes. Hello, Miss Weeks.
I'm going to pull these so you guys don't pull them.
He said.
But we go right side. I'm going to LOS.
Even though she was a harmless old woman, he was still unsure about her. She was odd, as if not too happy. At least that's what she sounded like on the phone. And just now, Jeremy mentally kicked himself for jumping to conclusions after only having conversed with her twice. It's great to finally get some people in here, apart from the usual tenants. We've had so little business the past few years. Not sure what's wrong. He frowned at him, as if expecting him to corroborate her statement. Yet Jeremy was sure she had at least an inkling of what was wrong with her building. All Jeremy could do was smile and nod, hoping to get this awkward exchange of dialogue over with as quickly as possible. Ms. Weeks sighed, produced a ring of keys from somewhere on her small frame, and plucked one off. Now listen, Jeremy. This key goes to your apartment, and it's very expensive to make extra, so don't lose it, she said, her eyes boring into his, as if peeping into his very soul was the answer she was looking for. Yeah, of course. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it, Jeremy assured her, trying to get away from the woman as soon as possible. She smiled at him sweetly and focused her attention on the door. Well then, with that out of the way, let's get you into your new home. And with an expectant look on her face, took the small silver key she gave me and slid into the lock. The key had caught my attention from the second she drew it from the keychain. The length of it was a cylindrical shaft of metal, with a few smaller pieces branching off at the end at a 90-degree angle. It was an old-fashioned key, that much was for sure, which meant this building was, indeed, very old. After a few seconds of forcing the key in, it finally slid all the way in, and with a bit of force, I turned it in the lock with an audible click. A grasped the rusty iron doorknob and turned it, letting the door open with a long, ominous creaking sound pervading the hall. The room beyond was bathed in thick darkness, as if entering it would send me swirling into the unknown. Oddly enough, that's exactly what this entire endeavor was. The unknown. When I was a college kid, fresh out of school, barely past the age of 20, not entirely sure I was ready to take on the world, as my parents put it. But I was here, so I decided to try and make the best of it. As weeks hurried past me, disappearing into the dark void for a few seconds, her shoes clicking softly on the wood floor. I merely stayed at the doorway, wondering if I should follow her. And after several seconds, the lights within the apartment blared to life, revealing a beaming Ms. Weeks by a light switch on the wall. I stepped into the threshold, taking in the surprisingly modern suite I was to be living in. Mind you, it wasn't a penthouse or anything, much better than I'd expected. The walls were a strong, yet not distasteful, light coffee brown, with red trim upon the bottom of the wall. The floors, as I said, were hardwood, treated and shining as if new. By the looks of the place, though, wouldn't surprise me. I walked cautiously down the entrance hall, into the living room, taking in the pleasant sight. Ms. Weeks had informed me that furniture would be provided, and that was what I dreaded most. Someone else's used furniture, left to collect dust and parasites. The furniture before me now was beautifully rendered in modern taste. A large three-cushion couch lay in the center of the living area, with a similar yet not exact light coffee color to it. A recliner was in the corner, facing what was to be the entertainment center. The only thing missing was a television, but I wasn't really into TV, so I didn't mind. I dropped my bags near the door and moved to the recliner. Just as its dark, clean caramel color suggested, it was extremely comfortable. I could definitely get used to this. I glanced to the other end of the living area and noticed that the kitchen, while small, was in the same fashion as the rest of the apartment. Well, it all seemed too good to be true. Ms. Weeks, I just have a slight little question, I said to the still beaming Ms. Weeks, who had apparently noticed how impressed I was with the status of my new home. Yes, dear? There's something wrong, she replied, a smile slowly ebbing, worried that something wasn't to my liking. What's with this place? Seriously, the outside looks like it can barely stand. There are vagabonds in the entranceway, and the lighting is reminiscent of a Dracula movie, I proclaimed, not entirely thinking of how she might take that negatively. And of course, I'm sure she did. To my immense surprise, she merely donned the smile once more and uttered a short little laugh. All that. I was afraid you were displeased with the residence. Well, it's a bit of a long story, she conceded, as if I wasn't at all intrigued. And I was, of course. Ms. Weeks, I have the time as long as you do, I said, hoping that was enough. Ms. Weeks sighed and said, well, if you must not. Then walked over to the couch, diagonal from where I was sitting in the recliner, and settled in, as if the story was going to take a while. I started fearing that it would, remembering just minutes ago when I wanted to be out of her company. Well, too late now, I realized. Ms. Weeks cleared her throat and began in a low, slightly melodramatic voice. Several years ago, and my husband was still with me. And we were running this building together. We were the talk of the town. Well, not really the talk of the town, but we were popular nonetheless. People who moved in stayed, and people who left usually didn't want to. Business was at its best, and we had been partners in crime for the better half of 50 years. Ms. Weeks' eyes had drifted beyond me, to memories drifting past, and better times with a man she'd known most of her life. It really was sad to see the old, albeit lively woman act in such a way. I almost missed her regular self. For more than 20 years, we lived the good life. Plenty of friends, plenty of money, financially sound in every way, and we were happy, with our business and each other. So naturally, because we had so much good in our life, We were destined to have some bad. I sat up straight now. There's a warning from my brain telling me I might not want to hear the rest, sending an ominous chill up my spine. One day in the middle of winter, there was a fire. Simple as that. Yet what wasn't so simple was that it took my husband from me. He didn't die a noble death, though. Asphyxiating on smoke. Dying in his sleep, something like that. No, he was burned alive right in front of me. I was utterly shocked. This was not what I'd been expecting at all. Well, that explains the scorch marks around the window, I said softly, hoping she wouldn't take offense at the fact that I'd noticed. That's right. Very observant of you, she said quietly, a bit of her old self returning to her. Now, where was I? She asked, no one in particular.
Whoops.
Yes.
Muted myself. Okay, so Big Boy and the escort quest at the end.
We were living here at the time, in the best suite that we had, feeling we deserved some luxury. Still not sure what caused it. The socket short-circuited. Someone left the stove. No idea. But we noticed the smoke and jumped out of bed. I ran to the door to get it open, but it had problems sometimes. Now, George was my husband's name. He said 100 times he was going to fix it. So, before I knew it,
oh, it's George's fault? Jeez.
Then suddenly he grabs me and lifts me up towards the vent on the ceiling. I hadn't even noticed it in the panic. I barely managed to open it and crawl into the ventilation before George fell. I also hadn't noticed that while he held me up, the fire had tasted it, and it wanted more. I sat in the ventilation as my husband writhed on the ground, aflame. There was nothing I could do. After the fire, everyone moved out. They knew what had happened to George. They were all close to him, as they were close to me. We tried to be as friendly as we could, but they knew what happened to George, and none wished to remain. I knew this place would never be as popular as it once was, so I never bothered to fix the exterior. Yet, I fixed up some of the rooms inside, in the event anyone would want to live here, so they'd have at least a nice place to stay. I sat in the chair, in complete and utter horror. The fact that such a gruesome event had happened to this sweet, creepy old woman gave me cold chills. I never talked with someone who'd witnessed the death of their spouse. Sure, I knew people who'd lost a brother or dad, but that was usually due to car accidents or disease. This woman had witnessed her own husband's demise. Such a grisly death at that. After a few moments of silence, and of Ms. Weeks staring forlornly down the hall that led to the rest of the suite.
Alright, now we do the what you call it, escort.
So sorry, Ms. Weeks.
At the end of the dungeon.
Really, it was foolish of me to.
That's why we cleared up. Oh, there's some mobs there, but we'll clear them up. It's whatever.
A melancholy trance. He looked at me as if nothing had happened. Don't be silly. I'm just an old croon, no one to talk to. You'll forgive me if a few dusty memories come tumbling out from time to time. She then flashed another trademark smile, showing off all her teeth, all gleaming white, despite her age. With that, she stood and stretched, starting off towards the rest of the suite. Now, on with the tour, she proclaimed in an overly optimistic voice. I suspected there was more to the story, yet didn't push it, not wanting to offend. I stood too, already missing the comfort of the recliner, and followed her back there.
I'll give everyone time to come here and grab their second Mark of the Wild before we start it.
It was an ordinary hallway, as ordinary as they come, with a door leading to the left and a door leading to the right, presumably to a bedroom and bathroom, or perhaps a closet. At the very end was a door unlike any I'd seen so far in the suite. I stepped towards it. I noted all the odd markings around the edge, the blackened appearance, and jagged cracks that ran throughout the frame. And then, the doorknob, blackened as well and just as rusty as the one outside, and on the other door. I assumed the blackened appearance was from the fire. Yet I had no idea why. such a pristine living space, where everything was as modern as possible, this one door would resemble all the others. With Ms. Weeks chattering in one of the bedrooms about the history of the neighborhood and all that, I extended my hand to the handle, feeling the suspense in the air. My heart was beating in my chest, for I knew something I most likely didn't want to see was behind this door. I grasped the handle, which was oddly warm, and began to turn the knob. It was locked. I looked at it in confusion, rattling the doorknob in frustration. All that build-up and nothing to show for it. I sighed, hoping Ms. Weeks would tell me. As I turned to ask her, I found a very happy-looking Ms. Weeks standing right behind me. I hadn't even noticed the chatter stop. "Is there something you're looking for, dear?" she said sweetly. Yet at this point, I was more than a little bit freaked out. Yeah, actually, the key to this door," I said, trying to look as innocent as possible. She glanced past me at the door, shrugged and said, "Doesn't have a key." I stared at her for a few seconds, wondering if she was pulling my leg or not. "What?" I asked incredulously. "All doors have keys, or at least I would imagine they do, if they're locked." "Well, that one doesn't," she remarked, nodding to the door. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, letting the awkwardness seep into my very clothes, hoping she would just leave. So then, what exactly happened to the door? I mean, look at it. It looks like it's been through a war, let alone a fire, he said, motioning to the jagged cracks that ran throughout the door. "I'm afraid the last tenant that was living here went a little, stir-crazy. He ended up tearing the door down," she replied. This was a very odd building indeed. "So what happened to him then?" I asked, eager to find out. Ms. Weeks just smiled and simply said, "He was evicted." I looked at her for several moments, wondering what to make of her strange ways of describing past events. After several more awkward moments, she finally burst into a wide grin, unable to control her laugh. "Oh my, you must lighten up, Jeremy. Really, kids these days, no sense of humor. The door has a key, just don't know where it is, I'm afraid." I breathed a sigh of relief. For a moment I was worried that I'd be living in an apartment building with a surprisingly threatening old woman. "So, what's through the door then?" I asked, anxious to hear. She glanced at it once more, taking in the question before finally answering. "Memories, I suppose." I stood there, taking in her oddly philosophical answer, wondering exactly what it meant. She smiled again, as I thought, and patted me on the cheek, as all old people do. "Well, that's the door. Don't fret about this door. It's nothing. Like I said, only memories in there. Belonged to a couple before the fire," she said to me, turning to walk back to the living area. I followed her, strangely comforted by those words. "So, where do you live now? Still staying in one of the suites?" I asked. No, long since moved out. Couldn't face this place every morning. That was close to 10 years ago. Don't know why I don't move back in. Could do me some good, facing my past." I smiled, secretly hoping she would. It was indeed a very sweet old lady, even if our first encounter proved to be somewhat odd or creepy. Either one. "One more thing before you go, Miss Weeks," I said, just as she was about to get up and leave, off to do whatever she needed to be doing. She looked at me expectantly, making it clear I could go on. "Why, though, keep the place so modern, so nice looking?" I said, expecting an answer as odd as she was. And what I got surprised me a bit. She smiled as she stood and began walking to the door, stopping just in the hall.
I think I'll do SFK carry next.
"Because, my dear, I miss having this place so full of people. If someone moves in, I want to make sure they'll never leave." She flashed another brief smile, gave me a small wave, and continued down the hall, the door sliding shut behind her. I had to think about her last comment for a few moments. It was so odd and so out of place, but well, I pushed the thought aside, writing it off as something odd whole peaks.
You can get it outside the instance.
With her arrival and
The
departure
Serpent
being
Bloom.
the height of my day, I settled
I
into
never
a
end
general
up doing
laziness
that quest
and developed
every
my
single
life
time.
next week.
Because everyone else
Managed to
is
get a job
getting
at a
it.
small-time newspaper, writing an article here and there, nothing too bad. The money was okay too, paid the bills, and even left me with enough to get the occasional book I'd been yearning. Overall, my life was finally starting out. People at the newspaper were starting to notice my above-average writing skill. I was being offered more and more chances to write articles. The money was increasingly better. Yet as all this was going on, something was still off with my new suite. When I say something, I mean the door. Every day I'd approach it and inspect the intricate carvings along the edge. I'm not even sure how to classify them besides odd. I'd try the handle every day to fail. Then I'd turn away defeated. Yet every time I did, just as I was in the living room, I swore I could hear something. Nothing specific, just something. A change in atmosphere, a click or tap. Maybe quite scratchy. But just barely enough to penetrate my ears with a strange sound. And it was growing to worry me. I kept my eye out for Ms. Weeks, yet she seldom appeared at the building. She obviously didn't need to be here often, as there were few tenants to look after. But even that worried me. I never saw them either. Sure, I heard them all.
There it
The
is.
sound of them.
You didn't come back last
past the
night.
door. Footsteps.
Drop the
muffled
battle
voice.
chicken.
But that was it. I wasn't too eager to try and meet them either. I just filed all this off to nerves. The pressure at work to complete increasingly more difficult jobs was mounting.
There's the
It's that
ring.
bad,
Oh, good luck.
Nightmares.
Shamans, Hunter. Everyone needs this, I'm pretty
bad.
sure, of this newbie group. Even if
Worst.
it has no agility, Hunter definitely wants that too.
I'd
So I'm
approached
just gonna
it in
pass.
complete darkness.
Good luck.
The thing I dreaded most was the opening of the door, because it opened in my dream. Suffice to say, I didn't enjoy what was
Yeah.
beyond.
UI
Door
for
creaked
the
open,
subs.
penetrating the silence of night.
Alright,
I'd
start a
stepped
fan
through
keep
the pitch
now.
black room. Once my eyes adjusted, all I could see would be a single figure crouched on the floor. He'd look up at me with glassy eyes and outstretch his burnt and blackened arm. He couldn't stand, for his legs were fused with the wood, and his face was a twisted contortion of pain and delirium. In the dream, I scream and back away. Yet as I do, I bump into a solid figure. I turn to see Ms. Weeks, standing, unmoving, and smiling broadly. A sickly pale look to her, staring straight into my eyes. Problem, she would say, yet not in her own voice. It was deep and cracking and far too slow. I ran past her to the front door, and all the while her screaming was drowning out my thoughts. Open the door. Open the door. You know what this means, don't you? I turned to look at her, fearing the worst. Her face is shrouded in shadows, yet not for long. As she steps forward, she says the next words, revealing a face that can only be described as not her. It means I get to feed you to George. And she cackled with glee, gripping her hands together in delight. I hear an equally maddening laugh from behind her. George. Before I know what's happening, she's in front of me, my arm in a death grip. She's pulling me towards George. He's still cackling and yelling, and she drags me to him. He's laughing and cackling and gurgling, and laughing some more. My vision blurs as Ms. Weeks forces me to my knees in front of George. The last thing I'd see before waking is the mangled face of George as he opens his mouth wide, revealing blackened teeth filed to points. And that's all I'd remember. Yet I didn't have this dream every night. Like I said, sometimes it was of the people in the walls, whispering to me as I tried to sleep, peering out at me from the people. Sometimes I find Ms. Weeks standing over me, staring at me. And I jolt out of bed, realizing that I was just dreaming. just as it was in the dream. Her face would be different. Very sick, clammy look, with her veins showing through, her lips never completely closed. She's always whispering. Behind her lips, her teeth are yellow, and like George's, filed to point. But it's the eyes that always get me. Wide and angry, almost furious. The pupils resemble that of a dog's, enlarged so there's very little white to show. But they aren't black like a dog's. They're yellow, full of madness. I was hoping that these nightmares would end after the first month or so, but to no avail. Now they kept haunting me at night, and in the waking light of day. Work was the only place where I found solace. Didn't stay in that apartment for too long. Sure, I'd see Ms. Weeks occasionally, but only ever long enough to say hello. And she always had to be somewhere. But one can imagine I was having misgivings about living there. First, it was great, but after a while I feared that I was starting to lose my mind. And naturally, I spent more time at work, much more. Because of that, I was earning more and more money. And people were beginning to notice. Pretty soon, a good portion of New York was reading my articles, and I was finally able to afford an apartment that wasn't possibly haunted. Of course, at that moment, I had no real reason to suspect it was haunted. Only that I was having nightmares. Yet I shrugged that off, telling myself I was just being a baby. Day after day, I was racked with these nightmares. I was ultimately relieved when I received word that I'd be getting a raise. It meant a lot more money, which meant I could now afford a different apartment. And as much as I hated to have to break the news to lonely Ms. Weeks, I knew I had to. And just like her habit of not appearing for days to weeks on end, I had to stay until I finally managed to get a hold of her and break the news to her. Gently, I might add, as I wasn't sure whether or not she was in fact some sort of demon, or if living in such a strange place with such a strange relic was finally getting to me. And one day, I realized it was. After a long day of work, I came home to find the usual. Furniture where it's supposed to be, lights off, as per how I left them for work, and the door securely locked and not budging. I wasn't surprised, as it had been like this for the past few months. I approached it as I usually did, ran my fingers lightly over the markings around the edge, put some weight on it to see if it would budge, and never did. I finally tried the door. And, just as every day, it was locked. I know that anyone hearing such a strange ritual that I honor every day couldn't help but wonder why. For me, it made perfect sense. This door stares at me, unmoving every single day since I moved in. It's mocking me. It does it every day, because every day I try to open it, to learn what memories or secrets are behind it, and every day it denies my entry. It jeers at me with its jagged scars, cruel smiles, its markings dancing around the edge with snickering laughter. I turn my back on it in defeat, and it has the gall to laugh at me. Me? What did I do to deserve this? Nothing. And that's what I did. I did what I was supposed to do. I was born, I went to school, discovered my talent. I chased my dreams to the point in which I questioned my own actions. I did everything life asked. Yet now, all it does is repay me by throwing a door in my face. Figuratively, as we all know it's not opening anytime soon. This monstrosity sitting in my home, taking up room and board here where I live, owes me everything. I don't even ask for it. I ask that it opens up, that's all. Just a tiny crack so I may see what secrets are beyond it. I find myself standing in front of the door, eyes fixed on the dead center of its frame. Think upon all the disgust and disease it brought to my
I've
mind.
lost the sub. What the fuck?
There's nothing I can do about it.
Alright, you guys
I
subbed
want to tear it off its hinges, and yet I can't. All I can do is think about the door and how much I hate it with every fibre of my being. Think back to the long hours I spent sitting in front of the door, staring. How many times I've yelled myself hoarse, trying to coerce it to appease me. And then, a thought altogether new hits me. The other tenant. All they've done is sit in their apartment sides and listened to my shouting and crying and begging and pleading. And all the bastards did was sit in their rooms and laugh. Laugh at young Jeremy, the kid who just wanted a quiet life, to settle down and write. Not anymore. Since this thing has entered my life, all I can do is think about how powerless I am to do anything about it. And while all the others laugh, I spiraled into blackened hatred for something so simple. The door. I spin on my heels towards the door, feeling the need to finally have a word with the neighbors. I step into the grim hallway, walking towards the room just to my left, towards the stairs. I grab a fire axe off the wall as I pass. I was certain some negotiation.
Let's not die here, no.
What would I negotiate? I wasn't so sure. Possibly nothing. Possibly just some friendly chit-chat about sports or the weather. First door breaks before me with the utmost ease. The axe slices through it as if hungered to taste the pine for too long. Don't worry, my friend, I whisper in its ear to comfort it. You'll have a gracious meal before you yet. I knew that there were people in there, for I always saw lights on and muffled talking. I kick through the splintered door and step into the suite. It was the same design, not nearly as modern. It looked exactly as a tenement suite should, like a complete home. Yet none of that mattered. I had to cleanse this place. It had to be done. Hello? Anybody home? Neighbor? I called out. No answer. Yet the muffled talking was clearer now. Just thought I'd bring over a little present. Tuna fish casserole. I made it myself. With that I drove the axe deep into the wall, giving my friend a quick meal before the real work began. I know you'll just love it. I passed through the living room, spotting several signs of someone living here. Pizza on the coffee table, the television, drink.
I'm not going to respond to
Yet
that.
something wasn't right. At all. Pizza had deteriorated to a black sludge, as if no one had been around in years. The television had long since burnt out, with a scorch mark along the wall behind it. Yet, due to the previous fire, there was little damage it could do. The kitchen was also a very curious sight. The refrigerator had long since stopped working, and the food inside resembled the pizza. And the sink only spat out brown liquid in spurts. Yet, most curious of all was on the table. A tape recorder. It was playing on a loop, with nothing but muffled voices blaring through. Surprisingly new, as if it had only been here a short while. Barely more than a few months. And then, it hit me like a ton of brick. Frantically, I searched the entire place for life. Yet, it was deserted. First place I went was the door at the end of the hallway, as it was identical to my suite. As much as I wanted to tear the door to pieces, I simply opened it, relishing the feeling of having control over something again. My eyes swept over the room, analysing all I could, and realising that this is what the room looks like. Tears welled up in my eyes at the intimacy of the moment. Yet it was short-lived, for this was not the room, merely a copy. Now only tears of rage greeted my eyes. I left the room, and this time my axe tasted the building's flesh. The door lay in heaps of splintered wood, as did the last of my innocence. I destroyed the other two doors, giving my friend a feast he would not soon forget. Then I moved on to the next suite. I wasn't surprised to find that empty as well, and the next one, and the next one. A few had tape recorders, playing the same recording, yet at different speeds and tones. After I was done with all the suites I believed were inhabited, all that was left was my own. I walked slowly through the doorway, and from the entrance I glared at the door at the end, as it was clearly visible from where I was standing. I let the door see me, and realized what I was about to do. And then I started falling. Slowly at first, simply walking towards it. As I called out, "Don't try to apologize, it's useless at this point. It would be a nice gesture." My voice was rising to a yell as I went from a walk to a jog to a sprint at the door. The last word emphasized as my axe bit into it with all the ferocity I could muster. Months of ineptitude leading up to this, my anger and hatred and fear and happiness all flowing from me, through my arm, into the axe, and finally through the door. It was difficult at first, for the door had been reinforced with a sheet of metal, so that no one could get any ideas like the one I had now.
We'll do 10
I was almost
minutes.
free, and such a feeling I'd never experienced before.
See if I can get
Tears of
fifth
joy
person
flowed
in
freely.
10 minutes.
I
If we
felt the
can,
axe
we'll
begin
just
to bite
do the
at the
3.
metal. We danced my dance of rage and emotion, the door and I, till I bathed in sweat and the axe tasted the blood of my hands. It had deserved something more substantial than mere wood, so I gave it blood. It feasted like a king. We both did in that moment. I never tired for a second, and such a tiresome action would have worn most out. But not me. I needed to end this door's life. I needed to kill it, to send it from this world. It represented what I, a writer, feared most. It was a door that couldn't be opened, at least not within the safe waters of sanity. Yet I knew what separated me from the rest of my kind. I wasn't afraid to cast aside such restraining shackles, and dove head first into enlightenment. Finally, the door gave way. I sobbed a sob of relief, of hope, of happiness, of freedom. My vision blurred as I stepped through the door and breathed in the smell of musty old curtains, mothballs, and something else. This room smelled different than what I'd imagined it would smell like. Among all these things, I caught the scent of death. Not death as in a coffin that lingers for years. It was almost fresh. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I squinted through the heavy curtains of black until finally I found what I was looking for. I felt my core physically shake. For in the middle of the floor, hunched on its knees, was a single figure. Legs fused to the equally burnt hardwood floor. Arms curled inward with the flesh that still clung to the burnt bones, yearning for freedom against its bonds. What clothes that were left were in tatters, and were forever melded with the withered figure's pitiful scraps of flesh. It turned its head to look at me, and I saw in the glassy eyes my reflection. Yet for some odd reason, I wasn't afraid of this thing, for I'd finally broken down the last barrier between me and it, and I felt we were connected. I wasn't afraid of this being, for I pitied it. No longer could it enjoy the streaming light of day, or the sweeping fields of green upon which to rest and watch the sun set. The tears were back, yet only in sadness. I wept silently for the creature, vision blurring before me. I watched as my tears fell upon the floor, glistening for a moment before fading away. It was then I noticed the peculiar shape, in chalk, upon the floor about the creature. As I stepped back, I noticed the creature was directly in the center, with a criss-crossing pattern throughout. It took me a moment before I realized what it was. Pentagram.
Yo, thank
I looked around
you.
the room, noticing for the first time the blackened shapes that used to be furniture.
Weston Bedell, thank you.
Then that I realized
Okay, looking for one more
Another
SFK
who
carry,
this creature
rank
was.
1
And what I was
Shaman
looking for.
Tank,
And then the rest.
in
All I
exchange
could think
for
about was
a
what was weak,
sub to
said the
my
day I moved in.
YouTube
Even
best.
here at the time, the best suite that we had, feeling we deserved some luxury. I realize now that she meant my suite. Got back to the nightmare, the people in the walls. There weren't any people watching me, just one person, Ms. Weeks. I then noticed what else was horribly wrong with what I was looking at. All around the room were figures, each more or less along the line of decomposition.
I think I can walk them off the thing if I beat their ass enough.
It was a scent I first noted. Suddenly a light fell on both me and George. Problem, dearie? Said the sweet voice.
If they accept the duel, I'll go Noma's mind control cap, and I'll like wait for the cooldown for it to like activate. And then I'll position them to walk off once I beat their ass, like to like 30% or whatever, to where they'll die from falling down there.
Definitely different.
Yeah.
Not yellow or dilated. Just cold and angry. More than slightly amused.
Fixing to go to bed, but popped in to say, rock on, say good night, my friend. Alright. Thank you,
What have you done to him?
AY08.
Whatever do you mean, dear? She asked, toying. You know damn well what I mean. What did you do to George? I said, motioning to the figure on the floor. Yet now I noticed. It wasn't like in my dream. It wasn't the large, monstrous, cackling figure as I'd imagined. He wasn't even trying to get to me or harm me. He just sat there, forlorn at his predicament. He was barely capable of moving. All he could do was tap the floor with a long, blackened nail, or drag a withered hand across the floor. Oh, God, I whispered to myself, realizing now that every time I tried to open the door, he was trying to signal me. The look in his eyes told me everything I need to know. He wasn't some malicious creature out of a young man's nightmare. He was in pain. That was all.
Alright.
Ms. Weeks noticed that my attention had been drawn from her and quickly amended that. All I've done here was none of your business. To help my poor husband through his struggle. I stared at her blankly, not fully understanding. She sighed, frustrated. All sweetness was out of her voice now. I was so distraught with losing my husband and my business. I decided to get them back. Though getting my husband back was ultimately the easier of the two. Go figure. So I simply turned to some necromancy, a bit of devil worship, a few sacrifices, and voila. The voice rose an extra octave and lathered on the sweetness with that last word. Unfortunately, the sacrifices, former tenants, were only good enough to keep him, well, sort of alive. I haven't been able to find a pure enough soul to fully pull him out of this dilapidated state. I narrowed my eyes at her with every other word. After all, even though I'd momentarily lapsed into insanity, I still found even this hard to believe. Before I could voice my incredulity, she continued. Luckily, though, I found a good enough sacrifice. You. The last word sent me staggering. What? I blurted out, unable to believe. Yes, you. You're young, handsome. You have a very pure grasp on both life and emotion. Simply perfect. Do excuse me if I gush somewhat. I'm just so excited. He was grinning again, all happiness having returned. And it was such happiness that left me uneasy. Here was this frail old woman, nearly 5'6", yet so confident about sacrificing me. I was easily 6'3", and the better half of 170 pounds, and a good portion was muscle. What makes you so sure of yourself? After all, look at the two of us. Also, I have an axe, I said, holding up the axe, as if that would be sufficient proof that whatever she was planning was folly. Well, whatever wasn't enough for my husband to regenerate with, I sort of, well, absorbed myself. As she said this, she stepped forward, grasped the hand that held the axe, and with strength that should not belong to a woman of her age, ripped it from my hand and sent it into the wall. I staggered backwards, hands in front of me, trying desperately to find an escape as she continued advancing. But she was surprisingly quick as well. Before I knew what was happening, I was on the floor next to George with a knife at my throat. I looked frantically into Ms. Weeks' eyes, hoping to find some sort of resolve there, maybe she could change her mind. I realized she wasn't going to the second I felt the steel of the knife entering my neck. My eyes began bulging and the pain seared through my entire body, and blood flowed freely from the wound, both onto the knife and into my throat. I began choking almost immediately. After a few moments of struggling against her iron grip, I felt my body start to go limp. My head lolled to one side, and the last thing I saw was George, a look of utter defeat in his blackened, burned face. Just before I slept, I swore I could see his face growing less blackened, his eyes returning to normal. But maybe that was just the blood loss. I was happy, though, with what I got to spend my dreams with. He had green eyes, and they were pleasant. Samantha Kirk stepped out of the taxi and eyed the building before her with a mix of curiosity and confusion. It was an old building, that much was for sure, yet all along the front were workers, slowly eradicating the grime that dominated the building's face. She was a writer, and young for one to be on her own. She'd moved here from her hometown a few hours away, hoping to find work at a newspaper, or perhaps a magazine. Just as she'd arrived in town, she was delighted to find an opening at a local newspaper. Apparently one of the younger writers had never returned from work, so the job went to her. Most believed it was the stress that had gotten to him from so much work. After all, work as much as someone like him did. They're running from something crazy.
I'm muted, but yeah, I'm open to say my group here is like way over levels. It's like, I'm not too scared for anyone near the body pool.
Well, hello, dear. You must be Samantha, said the old woman sweetly, a broad smile on her face. Samantha studied her for a moment and decided that she liked this woman. Yes, I am. Very pleased to meet you, replied the young woman, holding out her hand. The landlady, whose name she revealed to be Ms. Weeks, had a surprisingly firm grip for one so old. Her husband George, however, seemed as if a gust of wind would blow him away. Oh, I'm so worried for my dear George. He's just gotten over being ill for some time. I'm so glad he's gotten better, proclaimed Ms. Weeks, motioning to her husband, who was startlingly pale, and not partaking in his wife's happy demeanor. Samantha just smiled and followed them to her room inside. What's this? Asked the young woman as she inspected the large and foreboding door in her hallway. She had been given a most surprising suite, despite the building undergoing severe cosmetic reconstruction. It was very modern. The walls a strong yet light coffee brown colour, with red trim along the bottom, along with a furniture set resembling the wallpaper. Ms. Weeks approached her, studying the door herself. "Ah, my dear, that is a door," she answered. "No, I mean, why is it so old? And in my apartment," replied Samantha, frustrated. "It's just an old relic we kept around from the previous building. Lots of memories." It won't open," Samantha said, trying the door. "Yes, unfortunately, it doesn't open at all," the landlady said solemnly. "With all these cracks and scratches?" the young woman asked as she inspected the markings along the edges and the scars upon the hinges. "Oh, also unfortunate. You see, the previous tenant, well, he went a bit crazy and broke the door down," Ms. Weeks said, never letting up on her smile. Quite unnerving. "Oh my. Well, what happened to him then?" asked the young woman, very curious to hear the story. "Oh, he was evicted," replied Ms. Weeks. The Man in Black by Taxi Dancer. Part 1. The Contract. They look just like us. They walk among us unnoticed, blending in so perfectly that no one will recognize them for who and what they actually are. But at night, when the sun goes down and the dark shadows hide every corner of the city, they reveal their true forms as they emerge into the black of night out of their secret lairs and bat-infested caves to hunt people like me. With claw or with wing, with cunning or with heightened senses, with mystical powers With simple brute strength, they hunt us down when the night of the sun fades behind the horizon, as if we were animals. Almost every week, we wake in the morning to see the horrific news. They got one of the best of us. Our numbers grow thin, or they grow stronger in secret. Indeed, it was relatively safe to go out during the day. It was extremely risky to be out on the streets at night. We're in the darkest corners of the city. That's where they found us and took us. We didn't know where they came from or how many of them there were. We did know that where we were once at home in the night, we now had to hide from the dark.
There's our boy. No, he's still running.
Somehow the law firm of J. White and Fisk managed to
I will
find
eat a steak in this
their
time.
firm's new interns to meet and discuss a somewhat risky proposal. I'd briefly worked for the firm over a year prior when they hired me to deal with a problematic aquatic entity that was causing disruptions for the firm at the port transit terminal.
Who the hell is this we're
The
listening to
aftermath of
again?
that encounter caused quite a bit of consternation among the public and law enforcement. I was consequently forced to leave the country and lay low for a few months, living quite comfortably in a secluded chalet in Sicily overlooking the Mediterranean. However, I'd recently felt that it was safe for me to return to New York, where I lived a rather reclusive lifestyle for the past year. The intern introduced herself to me simply as Patricia.
Dr. Creepin.
And granted, while her stunning beauty did gain her access.
We're listening to a creepy pasta. I just have no idea what's going on.
Something lurks the city streets at night, she began. Something that snatches up victims in the darkness and leaves them hanging on streetlights for the police to find in the morning. She made herself comfortable on one of my couches as I passed her a cup of Earl Grey tea and poured one for myself. Thanking me, pulled out a small tablet and leaned over to show me the screen. I captured this on CCTV the other night just outside of a warehouse complex owned by the firm.
This is what's fixing to go to bed. Popped in to say, rock on, have a good night, my friend. Alright.
I admit that I was somewhat
have a good one, dude.
Still, I remained expressionless as I watched a grainy video of 4 men in a darkened parking lot near the docksides. The only illumination seemed to come from 2 streetlights and the lights from the warehouses. All of a sudden, something inhumanly quick and humanoid-shaped emerged from the shadows and snatched up one of the men, carrying him out of frame. The other 3 startled men, which I now noticed were wearing black tactical fatigues, pulled out small automatic handguns and frantically began shooting at something just off frame of the camera. Apparently missing their target, the thing then leapt in and out of the picture like a praying mantis seizing a fly, each time snatching up and taking away one of the men, until they were nowhere to be seen. The entire event took place in less than 20 seconds, and as the CCTV camera panned around the lot, there was nothing left to be seen save the empty parking lot, the warehouses, and the empty bank truck which the men had been driving. The video ended, and I leaned back, perplexed. So, do you know what that thing is? No, Petrova admitted. The thing has been disrupting operations for a year, and the firm would like it taken care of, if possible. I see. A year? Did the firm try any means of dealing with the thing during that time? I mean, do you have any other intel on that creature?
Red Optics almost here.
Petrova said, reluctantly. We did send 3 separate operatives to take care of it before we contacted you, but unfortunately all 3 have disappeared, presumably taken by that thing. Petrova then presented a black leather pouch and tossed it across my coffee table. You were the firm's first choice to send on this mission, seeing as you've had some experience in dealing with these creatures. But you've been very difficult to find after your last mission against that aquatic entity. I sipped a bit of my tea and replied, yes, well, after that affair, I thought it wise to lay low for a while. In fact, I'm not sure if it's safe yet to take on another mission. Petrova sipped her tea and nodded. That was a wise decision. Similar creatures of its ilk would surely have come hunting for you. The young woman leaned her head forwards, gesturing towards the pouch, a lock of her wavy strawberry blonde hair falling lazily in front of her face. However, the firm was hoping that this might persuade you to come out of hiding for one more assignment. I unzipped the pouch to find a keycard and $500,000 in cash. The keycard is to a safe deposit box with an additional $2 million in cash. Petrova smiled, finishing her tea. With the completion of your assignment, I'll deliver to you another keycard to a safe deposit box containing an additional 2.5 million. I stared at her for a second, Petrova looking at me with an alluring expression, as if daring me to say no to her. 5 million. So for twice the amount they paid me for the last assignment. This creature seems to be a lot cleverer than the one you last encountered, though perhaps not quite as strong, answered Petrova. We just don't know yet. Anyway, would you be interested in taking the contract? I'll need as much data as you can give me, I replied, deciding that I'd take the assignment, though I wasn't quite sure if it was because of the money, or because of her seductively innocent green eye. Intel, videos, witness statements, everything that can help me track down this creature. New York is a huge city. Tracking down something like this is going to be difficult. Petrova smiled, as if knowing that I wouldn't be able to turn her down. Most of its attacks have been in low-rent, high-crime districts. You may want to start your investigation around Hell's Kitchen, where its last 2 attacks took place. And the rest of the data. Petrova pulled out a silver thumb drive from her pocket. Everything that we have on the creature is on this. Pictures, video. It's all right here.
We got 5% attack speed, so...
Petrova added.
I think everyone gets the same buff, right? Do you guys not?
Newspaper editor.
Or is it just... this guy's got it. He's got Battle Squawk.
Petrova left.
Yeah, everyone's got Battle Squawk, okay.
Everything that I could on the creature. There wasn't much on the thumb drive to go on, which could help me in my search. Frustratingly, all of the pictures and video images were grainy. The video which Petrova showed me being the best images of the creature I could find. The problem was that all of the images of it were captured at night in very low light. Well, the thing did look humanoid in shape, though somewhat short and slender. Like others of its kind, it probably walked around the population during the day. At night, in its true form, it slinked around in the dark spaces of the crime-ridden part of the city, stalking its unsuspecting prey before jumping down upon it and dragging it into the night. Well, the thing was inhumanly fast, and by my estimation, based on the few video captures of the entity, it jumped to a height and length of between 20 to 25 meters. In addition, according to the witness statements of the very few victims that managed to escape from it, the creature had an unusual ability to generate some type of substance to entrap its prey. In the week that I was researching the creature, a newspaper article appeared which showed the police recovering the 4 men that were in the video that Petrova showed me. After another week of studying the creature's habits, it was time for me to begin the actual story. It was undoubtedly intelligent, having been able to elude the police and actually defeating the 3 operatives which were sent before me to bring it down. During the day, I set up small spy cameras on buildings and structures in areas of the city where the creature supposedly stalked at night. Using city maintenance and construction uniforms, I was able to set up cameras on the tops of streetlights and stoplights of busy traffic intersections. It's amazing.
We'll go for these sources just to see if you guys can get like a bag.
If they know what they're doing, can get away with it. As such, in a crowded city well used to constant construction and maintenance, I was able to cover nearly a 6-block area of the city with spy cameras and full view of thousands of people who never saw it. At the same time, I was choosing my equipment for the eventual time that I would complete the stalk and initiate the hunt. For the hunt, I decided that automatic weapons would not be the best tool to complete the job. Not in the middle of the city, not after I'd seen footage of the creature avoiding being hit by operatives armed with pistol-caliber automatic weapons. I'd need a more precise weapon, so I chose the compact M4A6 sniper rifle, the same type that I used as a PMC sniper in Iraq. This wouldn't be the weapon which I expected to use to kill the creature, as I doubted that I'd be able to hit it. I noticed that the creature used hit and run tactics against operators armed with guns, either biding its time to swiftly coming close to strike, or disengaging when it failed to close the distance. To defeat this thing, I had to bring it in close to me. To complete my loadouts, I carry a pair of Heckler & Koch HK-45 pistols and my trusted bayonet. For 3 nights, I remotely viewed the video feed from 12 small CCTV cameras which I'd previously set up. 6 cameras were located atop streetlights and stop signals inside Hell's Kitchen, while the remaining 6 were emplaced on buildings and rooftops surrounding the area. It was 3 nights of wasted effort, as my cameras caught nothing of interest, and the news was devoid of stories about victims of the creature being discovered. However, on the 4th night, near the docks on 12th Avenue, one of my cameras mounted near one of the firm's warehouses captured the fleeting image of a ghostly image flying past and going in a southerly direction. The next morning, Petrova called me, stating that one of the firm's deliveries had been intercepted and 2 more employees had been taken. Then, on the 7th night, shortly before midnight, the camera that I'd placed on top of a streetlight on the corner of West 47th Street and 10th Avenue in the heart of Hell's Kitchen started picking up something. Or rather, something picked it up. A small spy camera was suddenly lifted off of its mounting, and a humanoid head bereft of any facial features save for 2 giant white eyes stared down into the camera. Then the feed abruptly turned to static as if the camera had been crushed. I had another camera mounted atop the 42nd Street Port Authority bus terminal, which I quickly switched to and was able to get a good look at the slender creature perched precariously atop the streetlight, seemingly looking around for other cameras before swiftly jumping away and disappearing into the night. Again, its speed was incredible, and my camera only detected a blurry image disappearing into the sky towards the southwest. I was perplexed. Could this creature fly? Was this the legendary moth? I didn't see any external wings. Perhaps this was the so-called rake, or what people described as the slender one. If so, why is it stalking around Hell's Kitchen? Why would it have such an interest in the business dealings of the law firm of J. White and Fitz? The next day, I discovered that 6 of my spy cameras had been disabled, including the one atop the 42nd Street bus terminal. But the remaining ones, which bordered Hell's Kitchen, still remained active. That evening, 3 more of my cameras went offline. One at 21:50 hours, the next one at 22:05 hours, and the last one at 22:17 hours. This left me deeply perplexed. The distance between all 3 cameras was about 2.5 miles. They were all mounted and hidden in elevated spots. That meant that in a little over 30 minutes, the thing was able to track down and destroy all 3 of those cameras. How? Did it see me emplacing them during the day? Did it have some type of natural jamming method? There are literally millions of CCTV cameras in the city. How did it know to locate only the ones I emplaced? Perhaps it had some kind of heightened sensory powers, such as ESP. None of my other remaining working cameras, which were located a mile north of the ones which had been recently destroyed, picked up anything. But I did notice that the 3 cameras which went offline were in a line which pointed south. 2 things became obvious to me. One, the thing now knew that it was being hunted, would doubtless be more cautious. 2, the thing's lair was somewhere south of Hell's Kitchen, perhaps even south of the city proper. In any event, it was time for me to initiate the stalk, as I didn't want the thing to go into hiding. It had demonstrated much more intelligence and intuition than I'd expected. That was to be expected from these kind of cryptids. Where to look? South of Hell's Kitchen narrowed my search parameters. That was still a gigantic search parameter. I contacted Petrova once again, this time asking her when and where the creature first came into the firm's radar. She put me on hold for a few minutes before coming back and saying that the suspected creature was also active around the Staten Island area, about 20 miles south of Hell's Kitchen. In fact, she added, one of the creature's first sightings occurred a few miles from the campus of Empire State University. The lawyers J. White and Fisk, along with several of their associates, were meeting at a restaurant near the college to discuss combining their firms into one law firm.
Right, shield for one of you warriors.
I see. And what happened during the attack? I'm not sure, answered Petrova. It's a closely guarded secret of the firm. But I would assume that event was the underlying reason why J. White and Fisk decided to form one company. Why they're so adamant to stop these creatures. When did that first attack occur? I asked. Hang on a second, said Petrova. I could hear her typing something on a keyboard. Here it is. So our office records show that the first appearance of the creature occurred a little over a year and a half ago. In fact, it first appeared a month before you took care of the water entity.
Alright, like less than 10 minutes and we'll have it all done here. Like
now,
5 minutes, honestly. Just let me
the
get my
activities
mana.
of a distinguished law firm would be targeted by such creatures. But I really wasn't concerned about it. My job was to hunt the entities down.
Oh, F. Rip bozo. Fucking idiot. How do you die as a rogue?
Thanks. That's it. I'm going to begin the stalk down in Staten Island tonight. Can you reserve me a room near the university? Cheap one, nondescript. Sure. I'll text you the address in a few minutes. Then Petrova added, how long do you think it will take? Depends, I answered. I don't think I'll need any special weapons to rescue. But I have a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I'm missing something. Really? Like what? I don't know. Almost as soon as I took care of the water end, another creature appeared to attack the firm's assets. You suppose that the two creatures were working together? Petrova chuckled slightly. Very seriously doubt that. These two entities, or creatures, or whatever you want to call them, completely different, worlds apart. Maybe even universes apart. Yeah, I can see it. You're right. I may be just overthinking it. I'll call you as soon as I get some result. Okay, said Petrova. Be safe out there. I hung up the phone and began preparation for the night's storm. It was a few hours before sunset, and I needed to get down to Staten Island and the recon area. Part 2. The Stalk. The hungry bear will usually conduct its initial hunt relatively close to the location of where it first awakens from hibernation. Since the creature's first recorded sighting was a few miles from Empire State University, and was an attack against the founders of the law firm, I figured that would be the best place to start. My gut feelings told me that the creature's lair was somewhere near the university. Petrova had reserved a corner room for me on the top floor of the Courtyard Hotel, about a mile from the college. To be safe, Petrova also reserved the two rooms next to mine to ensure my privacy. Initially, I drove down in a rented, nondescript minivan and brought the things that I needed to begin the stalk up to my room. Just after sunset, I returned to my residence and retrieved my motorcycle, a jet black Indian Challenger Elite. I didn't intend to set up any more cameras in the area, as the creature could somehow sense that they were a threat. I didn't want to tip it off that I was here. By now, it was well after nightfall, time to begin the stalk.
Yeah.
I'd earlier removed the bulbs from the outside lights in front of the three rooms which Petrova had reserved for me, leaving a near black corner of the top floor. Additionally, right before sunset, I found a way to the rooftop where I had hidden a duffel bag in a black, hard plastic case. Under cover of the dark corner of the building, I made my way to the roof of the hotel unnoticed by anything. Once on the rooftop, I recovered my duffel bag, pulling out a set of black uniform fatigues, black climbing boots, black modular tactical vest, and a black face mask. I rested a set of AGM NVG 40 night vision goggles on my forehead, and pulled out an additional set of thermal binoculars. In the case, I assembled my M40 A6 sniper rifle. In a holster on my left hip, I had one of the HK-45 pistols.
My god, this guy sounds like a school shooter. Fucking hell. What are we listening to? I thought this was a creepy pasta.
2 additional magazines for each of the pistols, and 4 additional magazines for my sniper rifle. Finally, I slid my bayonet into the sheath of my right hip. This Courtyard Hotel was 6 stories tall and built atop a small hill just outside of an upper middle class suburb, and provided a reasonably good view of the surrounding area. It was a slightly overcast night, with the moon drifting in and out behind the black rolling cloud. I didn't expect to spot the creature tonight, so I was going to use this time to scan my surroundings, plot locations of possible future observation points, as well as scout probable routes that the creature might take to move unobserved from here north to its hunting grounds in Hell's Kitchen. I also had an area map that I took from the front desk, which I used to calculate firing ranges and engagement angles for my rifle from its vantage point. able to conclude there were locations within a mile radius of the hotel which offered better observation points to track the creature if, indeed, the creature's hiding place was near the collar. It was after midnight. I was marking off alternate observation points which I could investigate in the morning when the door to the roof opened. I slowly ducked down behind an air conditioning element, silently peered around the corner to see two hotel employees standing in the dim light cast by the stairwell leading to the roof.
Yeah, it's like the most dangerous part here.
A Latino woman were in the hotel's custodian uniforms. They were apparently taking a smoke break. Soon the heavy scent of marijuana and conspiratorial laughter drifted towards me. It was then, out of the corner of my eye, I perceived a faint shadow flickering from the building across the parking lot. The parking lot was fairly well lit, with a number of streetlights, and the reflection cast upon the surrounding buildings. Any sort of movement, however slight, noticeable to anyone who was actively observing something unusual. Without moving, I shifted my gaze to my right, to the next building about 100 meters away. It was a bank building 5 stories high, and I was able to look down.
There should be shit coming, like void walkers here.
In the corner of the rooftop, like a gargoyle, facing away from me towards the column.
Book here.
Skinny, with absolutely no facial features, except for 2 large, bulbous white eyes. Slowly and silently, I shrank back into the shadows, and made my way the few feet back to my right. I stealthily lifted the butt of the rifle to my shoulder, centered the IR sight on the creature. It was an eerie-looking thing, human in shape but extremely exaggerated in its crouching posture, as if its joints were inhumanly flexible. It did look like what some described as a rake, or even the slender. Centered the sight on the creature's head, and silently flipped the selector switch on my rifle to fire when, all of a sudden, it hopped around and faced my building, bulging white eyes directed up at me. And behind me gave a muffled squeak.
It's like a cooldown for this book to come back, so...
I could see from the corner of my eyes the young female hotel worker pulling down her pants and bending over against the wall, smiling in anticipation while her male companion unzipped his pack. Cursing to myself, I quickly turned my head to reacquire
I don't think so,
the target,
okay.
only to see it jump off the building into the darkness, disappearing in the direction of the column. Oh, fuck, I thought. Minutes later, I was back in my hotel room, on the phone to Petrov. To my surprise, the phone rang only once before she picked up. Petrova sounding as if she'd expected my call. What's the situation? Were you able to engage the target? No, I answered, somewhat caught off guard. I got a good look at it. I'm sure that its lair isn't near the college, but somehow in the college. Really? She answered. Once again, I could hear frantic typing into a keyboard in the background. That's odd. Our records don't indicate any attacks or disappearances of the college relating to the creature. Are you sure that's where it lived? No, I admit. I intend to check the place out. Does the college have any internal security faults? Hang on a second, Petrova replied. Her typing on the keyboard quickened. No, the school contracts out its security to a private company, Piedmont Security Services. You get me one of their uniforms. There was a brief pause as I heard Petrova tapping away on a computer.
Be very careful.
Yeah. I said delivered to the front desk for you in the morning. For a second, I wanted to ask her how much influence the law firm had that they could have a security uniform for a prestigious New York college delivered to me within the span of a few hours. But I decided against it. I remembered a time about 10 years ago when, during the height of the battle for the city of Fallujah, my PMC organization was able to deliver New York-style pizzas with extra cheese and pepperoni and ice-cold Coke from U.S. Army CH-47 Chinook helicopters to the front lines of the battlefield. If you had the money and the influence, there wasn't much that you couldn't accomplish. A stroll around the campus of Empire State University revealed that the security on site was adequate at best. Piedmont security staff.
Alright, I'm gonna get
large,
full mana and shit.
also so impersonal.
I'll just solo it. You guys just chill.
Not even the old.
Don't get nearby, or like if I don't kill it fast enough, like, and I get MC'd, like that's on you if you're nearby, and like my guy goes after your ass.
Tasked with walking around the campus, checking doors and windows, and accompanying students to and from class.
We don't really got polys or anything. I don't know. Like you could fear me maybe or stun me, but like if you guys are like so far away, I shouldn't be killing you.
Cared who I was.
I'd like far enough so I don't even lightning bolt you. You guys. Alright.
In the crowded campus hallways, I remained mostly unnoticed by the students and staff, except for a very brief moment on the second day when some nerdy kid with short wavy brown hair stopped to stare at me for a second in the hallway, leading to the science lab. By the end of the third day, I decided that my next observation stand would be atop one of the central dormitory buildings, as they were the tallest buildings on site, which offered the best view of the camp. There had been no sightings of the creature, and Petrova confirmed that it hadn't been spotted up in Hell's Kitchen either, but I felt certain that it was around here somewhere. And it was here. I could somehow feel it was here. Over the course of the next few days, I had acquired the keys to the door which accessed the roof of one of the central dormitories, and I was able to stash away my equipment and weapons on that rooftop. Each dormitory on campus.
Thank you all for the subs.
Gave me an almost limitless vantage point of the entire campus.
I think I'll call it a night here. I don't know if I'm gonna like. I've got more. There is higher level dungeons I could do in solo, but it's like that much more dangerous type of deal. But I'm gonna call it a night here. Thank you all for the subscriptions. Have a good night. Heyo.
This time there was little activity on the campus, as it was the beginning of spring break. Many of the students and staff were busy preparing to leave for a week. Those few students who remained on campus continued living their lives, blissfully unaware of the horrendous monster that lurked in their midst. Well, the first night on the roof was completely uneventful. The students came and went, cars came in and out, but absolutely nothing else of significance happened. On the second night, however, Petrova called me on my cell phone, saying that the creature had just appeared at around 2300 hours at the 12th Street docks of Hell's Kitchen, and had just attacked a group of associates working for the firm who were unloading goods from a small merchant vessel. I was again perched on my hidden observation site atop the dormitory at the college, and I responded by saying that if the creature was returned to this location, judging by the speed and distance the creature could travel, it would make the journey from Hell's Kitchen to the college in roughly 1 hour. Petrova again cautioned me to be careful, as the rake, or the Slenderman, or whatever this creature was, had proven to be just as physically powerful as the aquatic entity that I'd defeated over a year ago. Ending the call,